want to reconvene the November 17th meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard. We know the meeting has been officially warned because we were here at 5:30 and went into executive session. We had no formal business that, decisions that were made. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 17th meeting? We have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 17th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have approved the motion. Chair's remarks, I actually have no remarks, which
That's unbelievable.
I know, it's totally unbelievable. I'll have double remarks at the next
Oh,
next
good.
meeting. So we'll go right over to town manager's comments.
And I just have one brief one this evening, which is for the public, to remind everyone that it's 6:15 right now, and at 7 o'clock this evening, the polls will be closing. So if anybody still wants to vote in the Act 46 election this evening and has not yet had a chance to do that, you have 45 more minutes to get to the municipal center. We're having this meeting in the library this evening because the select board meeting room is being used for the voting. It's been a good turnout. It's been a steady flow of voters all day long, and we hope that anybody who still has a chance to come out will.
A lot of good
Thank you.
write-ins.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does anyone on the select board have any comments or committee reports?
I have one comment. As I think everybody knows, there was another pedestrian involved traffic accident last night.
Yes.
And one of the things that I noticed driving around at night is that people tend to wear, well, they do it in the daytime too, but they tend to wear really dark clothing. And when I was a kid, there was a campaign always going on, wear white at night, wear white at night. And maybe because cars had just been invented. And then they put lights on them, so they figured out that that's necessary.
You get
But I
hit by
wanted
a
to
horse.
Suggest that, I'm not sure who's our traffic safety committee representative, but I wanted to
It's
suggest that you will offer that as an option to the traffic safety committee, to consider a campaign to get people to wear white or reflective clothing at night. It's really, on my way here, somebody was walking their dog along by the farmer's market. If the dog hadn't been black and white, I wouldn't have seen it. He was totally visible. The dog had a little bit of white on its tail. So it just makes it even more dangerous when people aren't visible. Never mind the stuff.
Well said. Anyone else? Any other?
Well,
Oh.
I'll just chime in on that same subject, because I really would like to take more of a serious look at traffic calming measures. Well, I know we're moving forward with one up on Western Avenue possibly, and I mean further towards Main Street on Western Avenue. And in these cases, sometimes there's responsibility for the pedestrians too, not crossing at crosswalks. So there's responsibility on both sides for people to slow down and to sensibly cross the road. But I do want to take a little bit more look at that, measures that we can take to help save lives.
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, I hadn't planned to address that this evening, but both of your comments are on point, and I want to just underscore too that the risk for everyone involved, pedestrians and motorists, is even greater at this time of year because of the increased, the earlier darkness and the longer hours of darkness. So unfortunately, it seems that it has been not uncommon for us when these incidents have happened in town, that they've happened at this time of year when we're all heading into winter, and maybe pedestrians and drivers alike not giving that extra bit of caution to each other based on the fact that the season is changing and the conditions are becoming more hazardous. So thank you for your reminders on that, and it's important, especially right now, for people to be paying attention to those things.
Any other select board comments or committee reports?
Nope.
No? All right. Now we're going to move on to public participation, and this is the time in the meeting where members of the public can make comments on things or issues that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone would like to make a comment, this is the time to do it. And what I would ask is that we have a podium set up here that you could go to. We ask that you state your name and where you're from, and if you can keep your remarks to like 2 minutes tops, it would be much appreciated. And I see Star.
Thank you for this room.
Thank you for coming. I'm so happy to see everybody here. So at the last select board meeting, someone got up and asked about celebrations for Indigenous People Day. And we didn't have one at the library because of course we were closed because we were observing the holiday. But we are having an event, a belated event tomorrow night called Wearing Our Heritage, and it's a chance to connect with a panel of Abenaki artists. So I hope that all those people that wanted to celebrate, can continue the celebration and come tomorrow at 7 p.m. And we'll see you here. Thanks. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Sheila Humphreys, and I live in Brattleboro. Did you need my street address?
No, that's
Oh.
perfect. Unless you want to give it to
Social
us.
security number.
Yeah. And I don't see it on the agenda tonight. I thought it was going to be on the agenda tonight about the Traffic Safety Committee's recommendations regarding the sidewalk plow. So I think this is the appropriate time to just
Sure.
speak my support for funding for the sidewalk plow and for more staff to clear the sidewalks. I think it kind of dovetails with what David and Tim were talking about keeping pedestrians safer in our town. So thank you for considering that whenever it comes to your agenda.
Yeah. And we're going to have an overview of the budget tonight, and we're going to outline when we're going to talk about certain things. So we'll know more about the date when we're going to talk about things like that. So thanks for coming. Yes, please come up.
My name is Scott Smythe, and I am a resident of West Brattleboro, census designated place.
That's close.
And I, David's comment about the accident last night, I actually live pretty close to the church. And so this is the second time in 2 or 3 months where somebody has either had a bad accident right in front of where I live. And I noticed right after that last accident that you guys put up the speed display in the area, and that was, I found, very effective. I mean, I would be going 35 or something, and then I would get right back down. I thought that was a very effective thing. But I noticed, I think we have one in this town that's maybe like we just kind of pass it around. But I think that those are effective. I don't know how much those cost at all or anything, but those are very effective. People drive very fast through Western Brattleboro, and I really think we could maybe lower the speed limit to 25 and until you get out beyond Chelsea Royal and then on the way to Hogback. But anyone that I would like to work on maybe a committee or something that helps with this, just because it's really affecting my local area as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Steve, do we have a couple of those? We have 2 of them, right? And they rotate all around town? That's
And we bought them with the school district, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we can,
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Barbara Knudsen, and I live in the town of Brattleboro. And I'm also here to support the idea of sidewalks being cleared and anything that has to do, most of what I've heard tonight is like really positive about the safety traffic issues in our town, and just here to offer my support to that end.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Yeah.
Just a quick announcement, further to that same topic is the Traffic Safety Committee of the town meets monthly. We're scheduled to meet monthly, and we meet almost every month. Every now and then there's a month off when there isn't urgent business to conduct. But we do have a meeting that's going to be held next Thursday, the 16th, beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning in the Select Board meeting room.
Open to the public.
Open to the public. We encourage public participation in those meetings. Likely run about an hour and a half. So if that might affect how you go to work that day, then that, it begins at 8 and it should be done by about 9 or 9:30. We welcome your participation.
Thank you. Are there anybody else in the public have anything they'd like to say about something not on the agenda? Okay, I think we'll move on to unfinished business, and our first item is our regular police fire facilities project update from the town manager.
Thank you. Brief item this evening, brief update this evening, just that we do still expect to have substantial completion at the Central Fire Station in about a month. There's a tremendous amount of activity going on inside the building. I do want to note that we've had some noise concerns raised by the public to us about the impact from some of the new equipment there. With the addition, we're closer to residences than we were before, and there is some noise coming out of the ventilation system and some of what we've installed there. We're working on how to properly muffle those sounds and not have a negative impact on the neighborhood. And then at West Brattleboro, undoubtedly anyone who's been through the area has noticed that the old building has been demolished now, and the drainage, lighting, parking lot, and landscaping work has begun. We do expect that that's going to be completed before we really enter into winter. On the expenses that I authorized, the relatively smaller amounts for things that are under $10,000 or time urgent. There are more than usual in my report this week, but they are mostly for very small expenses related to the outfitting of the police department. If you have any questions about any of those, I'd be happy to answer them. And then I wanted to offer a clarification about something, actually a correction about something from last month. The uncommitted balance I reported last month as being just over $400,000. It had increased compared to where it had been, but there was a particular item in the adjustment that we did that actually should have gone to the paid column as opposed to the unencumbered column. And in so doing, we wouldn't have raised the uncommitted balance quite so high. So I want to tell you we've done a careful review of all of that, and I can verify that the current uncommitted balance as we enter the home stretch of the project is $291,826.44. The correction here, the adjustment to this carefully verified number, it indicates that we have less flexibility than we were hoping as we get down to the wire, but there is still more money in the uncommitted balance than the two significant items that remain at the police station, and then there would still be some left over, but it's close. So we're managing every penny, especially carefully right now, not that we haven't as we've gone along, but we're going to make sure that we do finish this project where there are some funds left from the bond, but we will have to address with the committee, as we've been planning to, probably sometime in January, but early in the new year, we'll get together with the Police Fire Facilities Building Committee, get a recommendation from the committee to the Select Board about the two items that remain at the police station, any other items that may remain at the fire station, and what purposes might this uncommitted balance be used for to finish the jobs.
Are we still an active committee?
You are. You
Because
are.
We haven't met in a long time.
Well, you haven't needed to meet for a
I
long
know.
time, but we will need to bring your advice to the board
Well,
before these final items
You
are
guys
addressed.
keep messing around with these numbers, and we'll have to meet more often.
Report.
John?
Does anyone on the board have any questions about the police fire facilities report? And just to clarify for anybody who's watching or in the audience, the two items we're talking about are the police station roof replacement, which is $90,000, and the police station carport, which is $150,000.
Yes.
Those are the two big ones.
That's correct. And
Okay.
and we've been talking from month to month on those
Yep.
here and in the project management about the necessity to wait until we got to the very end of the job to make sure that there were sufficient funds available before making those decisions. And we're just about at that moment now.
Yep. Perfect, thank you. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments about the police fire facilities report? Thank you. Next up is the second reading and public hearing on the ordinance to ban single-use plastic bags. And we have an ordinance that has been drafted for us, and the intent would be for us to vote on this evening unless somebody wants something changed, if that's
correct.
what we're doing it. And I guess I need to call the public hearing. Do we call the public hearing, do it all at the same time? Okay, so I want to open the public hearing on the ordinance to ban single-use plastic bags. And I don't know if we wanna go over this, where's Patrick? Hey, Patrick?
We're down here.
Oh, he's way down here. Do we wanna go through and just tell people what just a summary of what this ordinance is?
Sure.
It doesn't have to be anything big, but we might as well.
Let's see if I can get there. So the proposed ordinance would be a modification, a substantive modification to Chapter 7 of the Brattleboro Code of Ordinances. That is the chapter where solid waste issues are dealt with. This would be to set up Section 2, and it would be to define both what are acceptable forms of bags that can be provided at retail locations to the public for the purpose of carrying goods away, and to define what is not acceptable in terms of a bag that can be provided. At the present time, there is no such ordinance, and so retailers are free to provide free of charge any type of bag for consumers to take away products. Today, it can be plastic, it can be paper, it can be biodegradable, it can be anything. The ordinance as it is structured would define acceptable bags as being either biodegradable or compostable, paper bags, or reusable bags, which would include everything from a nylon bag or a denim bag or something along those lines, or a plastic bag, as long as it is of a certain thickness. As you'll recall from a review we did of all of the ordinances in the state of Massachusetts, we looked at 55 different communities, and virtually every community defined reusable plastic bag in terms of its mill thickness. However, as was pretty clear in the memo, there's no general consensus as to what is thick enough. There were communities that structured their mill thickness for a reusable plastic bag at 1.5 mils, and there were some that were at 4 mils thick. Based on the discussions we had with the select board a couple of meetings ago, it was made evident that the sort of flimsiest plastic bag, that which is generally given away at supermarkets, was really the subject of the ordinance, and so we confirmed that those bags are in fact somewhere around 3/4 mil. And so the ordinance that's before you would define a reusable plastic bag as one which is greater than 1 mil thick.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Does anyone in the public have any comments that they'd like to make about? Yes, Pam.
Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
We have a letter from Nancy Browse from Everyone's Books who asks to distribute copies to the select board.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Pal, do you want to go to the microphone? And just so people know that the microphone doesn't amplify your voice here, but it makes it so that the people in the public can hear.
Well, I brought a bag down and I got 3 bricks in it. And the top of the bag is 2 mil, and the bottom is over 1 mil. And there's 3 bricks in there. I did get 4 in there, but I was a little concerned. But the bricks are sharper. But if anybody would like to lift that, I'd be more than happy to have anybody try it.
I did already.
I already lived
Threw my arm out.
How about down there?
So if I can't lift it, I'm gonna look bad. I won't hit you, Brandy.
Would you like to
Give me a shot, David. So, I know the bag you're talking about that should be discontinued, but I find that that is usable to a great degree. I don't know if you can find a bag that's less usable, and what the sense is trying to use less plastic. So for all intents and purposes, this is less plastic than a 3 mil bag or whatever. So basically, I've accomplished in this program, through the advice of people that are in the business, that this is a decent program. Problem you have is with a paper bag. The paper bag, the only one that'll take this is the real heavy one that you have to carry out of the store like this, or a handle bag. Now, if you take a handle bag and put those bricks in it, you're going to probably have a problem with one of the handles, because they paste them on. How do they paste them on? With what? I don't know. But I brought up some bags. I think I brought you a couple bags that are cord and a flat and a regular flat pass.
Yes, I've seen.
Okay,
You brought me.
those seem to have more of a problem than this type of bag. So that's all I'm saying. I think that if you're talking about a mill, this bottom is more than a mill. The top is about 2 mil. So for all intents and purposes, that's a pretty strong bag. So I don't think you have to go any higher than that. But paper is far more expensive to buy, and paper is much heavier in weight for transportation. Also, the issue of storage is much greater. And in our particular store, the bags hang on a hook. We have them by grade. Underneath the store, we have all kinds of, in the counter, front counter, we have all kinds of issues with trying to find a place to put them. So for all intents and purposes, this bag is really super for our purpose. And I understand the reason for wanting to get rid of plastic. And we are going to put paper bags in the store because we are sensitive to that issue as well. And that's all I want to say. Any questions?
Thank you, Pal.
Did you tell us what the mill was on that?
2 on the top?
It's 2 mil on the 2 mil on the top,
Yep.
and a little over 1.5 mil. I don't know if the 1.5 mil something on the bottom, but it's over 1 mil. But if you put one brick in a bag you buy at the grocery store, I don't think it'll work.
Thank you, Pal. Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to make? Yes. Yes, please do. And tell us who you are and where you are from.
I'm Alice Charks. I live in Brattleboro. I just wanted to, I appreciate Pal's enthusiasm about his plastic bags. And the issue that can carry 3 or 4 bricks, it's good. But the point is, I think, that people throw away bags all the time. So the fact that that bag is eminently reusable and possibly reusable for decades. Most people don't use plastic bags, though, for that. Most people, it seems to me, throw plastic bags away. And there was an article that's interesting, I just want to bring to your attention. It was in the Times last week, and it was about Rwanda and their policy of a zero tolerance on bags. And the part that's interesting is that this nation, Rwanda, is one of the more than 40 around the world that have banned, restricted, or taxed the use of plastic bags, including China, France, and Italy. And I think for us, it's a higher moral ground for us to say we're really going to try and eliminate plastic bags and not continue to craft them so that they last longer and longer. I think that the ideas that you had, which as far as biodegradable, compostable, although even in this article they said those kind of bags are at least 2 years in the ground before they decompose. Paper, reusable though, and I think that we need to think, my feeling was when I voted for this that I want Brattleboro to be a place where we're looking ahead and we're not continuing to churn away the same old thing. And the same old thing has been plastic. That's since The Graduate in the 1960s. Okay, and I think we all know that we should move away from plastic. And I think that that's what the spirit to me of this ordinance should be.
Thank you very much. And does anyone else have anything? Yes. Stuart. Oh.
Hi, I'm Drew Adam. I live in Brattleboro. I'm a charter member of the Brattleboro Ag Advisory Committee and a charter member of the Brattleboro Conservation Commission and retired soil scientist. I didn't really feel strongly one way or the other about the plastic bag ban in Brattleboro, but recently I went to the dump with a friend the other day, and we went to the swap and we did a few things, and I asked to go across the street and go to the composting site. And fortunately on a Saturday, the gentleman was working, screening out the compost, and it was a great operation, and lots of good waste was being recycled. And he was showing me how they had windrow after windrow, and it took about a year to compost the material until it was eventually ready for consumer use. On the far side, there was this really large pile, and I asked him what that was all about. And he said that that was tailings. I said, well, can you explain what that means? And he said, it's composted material that just has too much plastic in it. It's been composting well over a year, and it just sits there, and the plastic continues to exist. And so I did have a picture of that here. And this is material that the composting people cannot use. It is material that will stay there. It is a liability. So this is after well over a year of composting, this plastic still exists. So I just think that we are seeing the negative side effects of that, and I am in favor, hopefully, of minimizing our use of plastic in town. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, Stuart, we'll move this direction.
My name is Stuart McDermott. I live off of Sunset Lake Road. Excuse me. I think everybody is very, very much aware of the detrimental effect that plastic is having on our planet. And I would like to see our select board and our town take a real step in leadership, as Alice has mentioned, in other towns and even other countries. Patrick did a preliminary analysis sometime before and came up with a proposal of, I think it was 3 mil. And I would like to see our town, our select board, step forth as a leadership in our state and not be afraid to step out there. We always got our purchases home somehow before. We can do it without plastic. Plastic isn't necessary. I would like to see our town take a real leadership step by going back to the 3 mil, if we can, and really step out as Brattleboro leads so much in our environment, and have our town lead the way too in our state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abby Manukin. I live in Brattleboro. I haven't been here for a while. It's hard to get here during kid bedtime, so I know I've missed some of the meetings up until now, but I've been following them online and getting reports. I'm a part of the 350 Vermont node here called 350 Brattleboro, and we focus on climate justice and climate action. I respect Pal's talk about the Sam's bags, but my understanding is that we've had one merchant come up to complain about this, and we had 1,300 people sign a petition for a plastic bag ban in Brattleboro. And were we to go back, I was a part of it, but was the person who wrote it to go back and maybe include a thickness, that might have been ideal so that you would know what those 1,300 people were thinking. But I believe that those people were really asking, like Stuart said, for Brattleboro to take a leadership role here and ban single-use plastic bags and not get lost in these details of just the ones like Hannaford's and Price Chopper that are really the throwaway. I also agree with what Alice and somebody else said. Most people are not taking these bags home to reuse. I actually had one person tell me when the co-op got rid of their plastic bags many years ago that they were really disappointed because they used to take those bags home and line their trash can with it so that they could put trash in it. So they got 2 uses out of it, but this was not a bag that was being reused again and again and again. And Brattleboro is in a position where, apart from maybe that big plastic pile near the compost bin, we ship our waste out. We don't deal with it here. It's like a not in my backyard, it goes somewhere else. Whereas there are lots of people in many communities that don't have that choice, and there's now a Pacific garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean that's the size of Texas. And these are the things that we need to be thinking about here. These are growing because of our consumer-driven waste society that relies on convenience and not need. And so I think that there could be an option for consumers to pay for a plastic bag. That wouldn't be my choice to pay for it, but it could be theirs. I would hope that more and more people would use reusable bags like canvas bags, but if they can pay for it, that could be an option. But the convenience is something that we need to be willing to give up in order to really move towards a just and sustainable world for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby.
Does anyone else? Yes. Oh, we're gonna let the woman behind you and then we'll have Tim go. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. My name's Kit Whale and I live in Brattleboro. And I'm one of the people who signed the petition, and I'm so proud of Brattleboro that we're even talking about this. And I didn't come with prepared remarks, but I just want to echo what everyone else has said. And I also had the idea, and my husband and a lot of people who are thinking this, but can't, or think, you know, the room is already full, I'm not going to show up. I'm sure you're all familiar with the DC plan. They charged, you know, I think the retailers were paying 2 cents for a bag, and then they charged 5 cents for a bag, and they used the money that they saved from not banning, but charging for their plastic bags to clean up the river. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's very smart, who said, well, why don't we just let our town merchants have the option, if someone gets all huffy because they're not offered a plastic bag or given a plastic bag, say, well, we can give you a plastic bag, but we're going to charge you something that they would significantly feel, maybe a dime, so that they would really be invested in that plastic bag, and it might make them think twice about taking it only to throw it away. And then let the merchants do whatever they want with whatever they have earned off of providing a plastic bag. So in a way, I guess that could be considered a plastic bag tax, but it would be so great to just get rid of the plastic bags. We can do this. So many people are already doing it. So many people now offer a cloth bag that, you know, I even refuse cloth bags that are offered by a few merchants where I shop because I have so many that sit in my car. It's not like people can't use cloth bags or replace them when they wear out eventually. But I really do think Brattleboro is a leading community. We're progressive, we are forward-looking, and I think we can do it, and I hope we do. Just ban the plastic bags. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Tim. Tim, did you want to go?
Tim Maysale, Brattleboro. Let's talk about Brattleboro. Based on a population conservatively of 11,000 people in this town, Brattleboro's residents discard over 6.4 million plastic bags each year. Local retailers, these plastic bags aren't free, local retailers spend almost $256,000 annually to buy bags that are used on average only 12 minutes, and which linger in the environment for 1,000 years. Each month, well, this is why in March, way back in March, Brattleboro residents voted in favor of the bag ordinance by a 3-to-1 margin. Eliminating bags is a good step, but Brattleboro's ordinance as proposed should be a lot better. I think the assistant town manager had it right. The first time a few meetings ago when he proposed a minimum mill thickness of 3.0. And then one merchant, in the last 10 months, I've heard from one merchant who is resistant to change perhaps, and because of that one merchant's presentation, it was lowered to 1 mil. Now, an ordinance eliminating only the thinnest bags, 1 mil and below, may actually increase plastic waste by encouraging the use of thick plastic bags up to 2.5 mil. This is according to research by Mass Green Network. And Tim, I hope that you had a chance to look over that network. So anything really, the research shows that anything below 2.5 is just going to really increase it. A minimum of 3 mil was the right choice in the beginning. Hundreds of communities across the United States, including 55 communities in Massachusetts, just south of us, and the entire states of California and Hawaii, have voted to pass similar laws to reduce plastic bags. Throughout the world, more and more municipalities are living more sustainably by taking measures to curb plastic bags. Ireland has done it, Rwanda has done it, Brattleboro has done it, Sam's can adjust. People don't go out of business because of ordinances that specify a 3 mil thickness, which I think is very reasonable. They just don't. People adapt. I think that you're not giving Sam's credit for the adaptability of that business and the adaptability of people in Vermont. Our purpose is not to turn people to paper. Of course, it's to have them use reusable bags. So that's all I have to say about that. I do have a question though about the ordinance, when it would go into effect, because the draft that I saw, one said that it would go into effect in January 2018, but the other had July 18th. Could somebody clarify when the ordinance would go into effect?
The one we're reading, Patrick, the paperwork I have says January 6, 2018. Is that correct? The one in our notebook? That first, see that first top sheet?
If that's the case, that could be an error. The intention, as the ordinance was originally drafted, phased in July 1 of 2018.
Okay.
So the intention behind that there was to provide enough time for
Right.
some public outreach to businesses and to the community to be able to educate folks as to the ordinance. So the 6-month window, or 6 or 7 months, was intended to provide that time to help educate the retail and public.
Okay.
And I urge the board to really reconsider that. My goodness, we've been at this since a vote in March. Before that, 4 or 5 years ago, there's proposals to change this. I think the business communities, I know from speaking with them, have had sufficient time to get prepared for this. So I would really urge them to, come on, January would really be sufficient time. The other question I have about the ordinance as written now is the petitions, as I understand it. Business can petition to defer the ordinance for themselves for 6 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's something.
That is correct.
Yes.
So as proposed now, the ordinance would go into effect in July of 18. The business can make a petition and then defer for another 6 months, and then violate the ordinance and pay a $50 fine, deferred another 6 months. I think it should be a little stricter than that. So I urge the board to reconsider the time that it goes into effect, the deferments, and please, the minimum thickness, 3.1. You had it right the first time. Let's go with that.
Thank you. Yes, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie Bowman, representing the downtown Brattleboro. DBA, downtown Brattleboro Alliance.
Alliance.
Sorry.
We'll figure it out.
I'm curious if the poll that that the DBA took with the businesses got into public record or not.
I don't think
I'll
so.
just reiterate it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we took immediately after the vote was taken, we sent a poll on March 22nd, the results. And those results are 33 businesses responded to the poll. 3 did not support, 4 were neutral, and 26 support the ban. Some of the comments that they wrote in: it is time, other countries have done this for years, time for change. Plastic bags are just terrible for the environment, who really needs to use one? Plastic bags are bad on too many levels. I think the ban is in line with our goal and lifestyle in the Brattleboro community and would promote awareness and pride in our green state. There are many other comments, and I did pass this on via email to the board, and would be happy to forward it again.
Can I ask you one question while you're up there? Did you ask people, these businesses, whether they currently use plastic bags?
No, we did not.
Okay.
And there are some responses within there about current use. And then one of the ones that I don't know the answer to this is, the question was, will we be able to finish using our plastic bags that we currently have in inventory? And I don't know if you guys have discussed that.
Okay.
We didn't ask that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes. Yes.
Hi, I'm Michelle Wright. I live in Brattleboro. I have a demonstration of the thicknesses of bags, and I'm really pleased to hear of all the research you did beforehand to determine the exact thicknesses of bags. Maybe for people who don't know.
That's an excellent display.
I should have been a teacher.
Abby's really, this is gonna go on her refrigerator.
And the 1.0 ones, 2.0 are over here. 1.5, currently what you're suggesting. 2.5, pretty thick bag. 3.0, these weren't point of sale bags. You know, I've got a rice bag, a chocolate chip bag. And 4.0. 4.0, again, really super thick. And I had to borrow a micrometer for this. It was really fun. Mostly I'd like to reiterate how important it is to me and to the people that I know that the bag is it makes a really bold statement and really makes a difference. I think when we ban the thinner bags, the businesses will be tempted to use a slightly thicker bag, which will ultimately mean more plastic in the environment. I have shopped in lots of towns where they have had a plastic bag ban, and I forgot to bring my cloth bag. I did wind up using a paper bag to bring my belongings home, and the businesses were thriving. It didn't seem to me that it was a real hardship for the town, for the businesses. And I guess my last, the only point that wasn't already mentioned is that one of my concerns about plastic is the health effects of plastic in the environment. That even if it does break down in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, those pieces are very, very small, and they don't ever turn into any kind of soil. They continue to be plastic, and toxins attached to plastic, and we drink those toxins. And they go into the meat the animals eat, and we eat the meat. And that's another reason to just be strong and go for 3.0. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone else in the public have any comments? Yes, please come up to the microphone.
I gotta congratulate you again on that.
Thanks.
That was very good. That was very good eye-opener.
Sheila Humphreys from Brattleboro, and I will be very brief and just say that I totally support this ban. I voted in favor of the ban, and I thank all the people who showed up tonight who had really great things to say in favor of this ban, and really, strengthened my feeling that this is the right thing for our town to do, to be a leader in Vermont, and in the nation. So I urge you to move forward with this. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else in the public have any comments? Yes, please come up.
Yeah, just a quick story. So I'm actually from Portland, Maine, but I live here now. Lived here for the past 3 years, and I would describe my father as a very conservative person. Doesn't really believe in any sort of climate change or anything like that. But when Portland, Maine decided to charge 10 cents per bag, well, guess what? He stopped using plastic bags. And if they hadn't decided to do that, I mean, he would just keep on doing that. My roommate is another situation where that is the case. If you start charging for something, they're going to find other ways to bring their products home. But if you don't, they're not even going to ever think about it. My roommate said to me the other day, "Hey, we got too many plastic bags." And I said, "Yeah, well, where did they all come from? I don't use them. I don't bring them home." And so you kind of realize, whoa, I did all that. So we have to do something, and we're talking about thicknesses and all of that, but an outright ban is the right thing to do. I mean, we're at this point of where we are in this world and where we are environmentally. It's pretty hard to deny any scientific reason to use a plastic bag at all. And so I think that this community could tolerate absolutely and embrace a ban of plastic bags entirely. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else have any comments? Oh, Daniel.
Daniel Quip, Brattleboro. I also do some work with 350 Vermont, 350 Brattleboro. Yeah, I'm totally in favor of like a really substantial bag ban rather than, sort of a wishy-washy compromise. One thing I think that we haven't really kind of talked about publicly is, what effect does this have on low-income families? And not only like, what like financial effect, but like how does that feel? Maybe it feels like you're being targeted or penalized or punished or something, and being made to pay for something that you just need to carry your groceries home. So from a perspective of like what can our downtown businesses do and what can our town government do, maybe we can throw some grant money at getting some reusable bags and stick some of our downtown businesses' names on them. And and then they'll walk around with an advertisement for your establishment, and they'll have this thing that they can use for years, right? And I don't really know about like grants and all that stuff, right? But maybe there's a few grand kicking around in the back of a closet or something. I don't know. But just I've spoken with some people about this who are anti-bag ban, who I would have expected to have supported it for like environmental reasons, but they see it as an issue of, it's a class issue, and the people that typically show up to these meetings, I don't know. I identify as working class, but I don't think I like present to the world as working class, I'm like some, middle class liberal, blah, blah, blah. But, this is a class issue and it's a political issue as well, but as was just kind of mentioned, if we make it about money, right? Like, if we charge somebody 10 cents to do something, they're either going to pay the 10 cents because they can afford it, or they're going to figure out another way to do it that doesn't cost them 10 cents. So if the town and Downtown Business Alliance and other businesses and chamber people could get together, get a bunch of reusable bags. I know the Savings and Loan did it a while back. I remember seeing those at the co-op, just giving them away for free. And those bags are still in use. So, yeah.
Does anyone else have any comments? Yes.
Barbara Knudsen, Brattleboro, and this is another area in which I have pretty strong opinions and would also just like to offer my support in favor of the ban and in favor of a ban. I've traveled to several places recently where they do have a ban on plastic bags, and it sort of takes you aback at first, but now I have several lovely souvenirs that are a whole lot better than a tchotchke on the shelf, because I buy a plastic bag and bring it home, and now it's in my car, and every time I take it out, you know, I can remember that trip or whatever. But also further to what I think Abby said, not only are there 5, not all the size of Texas, but there are 5 islands in the Pacific that are plastic islands, and they just, I just heard on the news this morning, there's one forming off of Honduras, which is closer to the coast than any other one that they have yet recorded. So it's not just an issue that is like, and I think most people know this, but it's not just an issue that's like far away. It's coming closer every day and has more effect, and will have an effect that's going to be harder to mitigate in the future. So I support Brattleboro being a leader in this, and appreciate all the work that people are doing to further this idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Yes, Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda from New Fame, and always here. So
Why don't you just move to Brattleboro?
you know, I grew up here, so I'm still here in my heart. But I wasn't actually planning to speak about this issue at all. However, I felt really compelled by because I'm conflicted about this issue, because I do feel like there is a class issue when people are more comfortable carrying home a more comfortable bag and can't buy a canvas one, and either have to pay 10 cents, which is a lot if you're 5 cents, if you're struggling, or don't. However, I love the idea of a grant, because philosophically I'm for a complete ban, and I think that we don't need to have plastic bags. However, the idea of a grant to come up with canvas bags so that we can get low-income people reusable bags at different stores, and we're still carrying around the advertisement, because I do know also as a business owner that advertisement is important. So you want people to know they just shopped at your store, or your business or your festival. So I would love that. That's all. The grant idea.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public have any comments? Okay, I think what I'm going to do is we close the public hearing part. Is that correct? And then we can talk about it with the board. I'm going to close the public hearing and take questions and comments from the board. We have before us an ordinance.
I'm more confused than
You're confused?
before.
Well, can I make a comment to
Yes.
kind of help frame us a little bit? maybe?
Sure.
I think it has to be made clear that the vote that was taken, and was clearly overwhelming from the public to advise us to take up this issue, does clearly say to consider banning single-use plastic bags. So I wanted to just vocalize that we are not up here, as far as I understand, considering banning all plastic bags, because I don't believe that was the will of the voters. Now, I think and the other thing I think we're not doing today is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is considering adding charges or facilitating that, because that gets us into a large amount of work that we're not really
Prepared
ready
to
to
do
take
right
on
now.
right now.
Right.
However, that does not stop merchants from doing that at all.
Right.
Correct. I think the issue here is this idea of a definition around single use, because there is no one definition of single use. That's kind of the problem. At our last meeting, or the meeting before, I can't remember, I threw out the 1 mil because I was actually surprised to learn that the bags that in my head really were single use, that I thought are worthless, beyond a couple uses, are the under 1 mil, the 0.75, as Patrick pointed out to us, those bags you get at, the supermarkets mainly. So I think that's really where the debate is here. And I think I'm going to leave it there for now, just to kind of point out the history, and because I know there are some people here who really want to ban all plastic bags, but I don't feel that is our mission, according to the voters.
I'm just going to move away a little bit.
That's correct.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Brady.
So I'm just taking a peek back at, we have here a page 6 that looks like it was the, what to vote on, and it does have a description that the voters did read, and I just want to read that out loud. A single-use plastic bag is defined as a plastic bag other than a reusable bag or recycled bag provided for the purpose of transporting food or merchandise out of an establishment. I guess the only thing that could be fuzzy there is, what did the writer mean when they wrote reusable bag? I mean, it probably would have been better, just in hindsight, to say like canvas, kind of parenthetically break that out, because technically you could fight about whether they meant a higher mill bag. But I do want to point out that for the sake of that vote, it was defined as a plastic bag other than a reusable or recycled bag provided for the purpose of transporting food or merchandise out of an establishment.
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah, I mean, philosophically, and I agree that I think we would all love to see all plastic go away. I mean, it's a nuisance, but it's in our society. It's in our world, and that's so. Getting back to what the intent was of the original article, I think we really do have to stay a little bit focused on that. I hate to get it down to the mill, but for me, when I first heard about it and when it was first read, the first thing that came to my mind was the ones that the stores use, the grocery stores, because you don't really use them for anything else. We do line our garbage cans every now and then with them, but for the most part, they sit under the counter, and every now and then we go, "The hell are we doing with all these bags?" And then we have to get rid of them somehow.
Recycle.
Yeah, we have to recycle them, but plastic is as much as we hate it, it's an evil necessity. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So I think, as we just stated, that I think we do have to stay a little bit focused on this and go with the intent of what I think the original article meant. So, and I do agree with that we really do have to stay a little bit focused on this, and maybe in the future we can try to eliminate more of it. But I think, for all intents and purposes for this vote, I think I will stick with that. What is in my head is what the single-use plastic bag was.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments?
I want to make a motion whenever we're at that point.
Okay. Dave, do you want to say something? Because I want to say something,
Well,
but I
yeah,
want to
just
go first.
Just one comment. Sometime during last week, I was listening to the radio, and it was a report on plastic in our environment. And it wasn't talking about the plastic, the little beads, or the plastic that comes from the plastic bags. It was talking about the plastic that comes off of our fleeces that we all love and are so warm. But every time you throw it in the washer, tens of thousands of those little fibers go directly into the water system. And they're already in us. They're already in our water. They're already in all the food we eat. So, we're going to do some good here, and I hope that it helps other towns do the same thing and moves us further away from using petroleum to carry things around in. But just think about that next time you throw your fleece in the wash, or throw your fleece away and get the old canvas ones out.
I'll just chime in since I'm the only one that hasn't, but I actually agree with Tim and what Tim and John just said. And in the ideal world, I love to go crazy and go all the way with the plastic as well. But I think, it is, what's your definition of reusable plastic bag or single-use plastic bag. And I actually respect everybody who's spoken, what you said on all sides, but I'm comfortable with the ordinance as drafted with the 1 mil or less. Tim?
I'm not sure I made myself clear. I was not advocating for staying at 1 mil
Okay.
necessarily. I was trying to sort of frame some
I liked how you
general
framed
understandings.
it. I liked your framing of the general understanding.
I think the next thing I wanted to say is that I know that Pal, you've Sam's is not just any retailer in our town. What do you employ? 60 people right in town?
Well, total company's 93.
Yeah.
Brattleboro's got 50.
Okay. As Pal has pointed out, he's an outdoor store. He's very conscious about environmental issues, and it's not like 1 against 33 or 3 against 33. It feels like because of the range of definitions of single use and a legitimate concern by an important retailer in our town that we could come to some sort of middle ground that might feel better for everyone. So what I was going to advocate for is actually saying right to Pal, what could you handle a little better than just the 3 mil? Maybe we could get somewhere.
The real answer is the fact that the bag acts as a serious issue for me, because I have big bags. And the big bags I brought you in the last time had a box that was this size, a sleeping bag, a pair of snowshoes. And when you fill a Christmas program, you can have 3 or 4 bags. I couldn't fit that snowshoe in, well, that particular snowshoe, I probably could fit in some of the bigger bags. But the big bag is certainly different. And you go up, generally you go up in size. As you go up in size, you go up in mil. But you have to understand that right now we face imports. And paper is now becoming an import program. So lead time on some of these things is 6 to 9 months. Because if I order a bag that comes from China, they have to put together a big order because it comes on a container or a ship. So those issues, when I place one out, if they've just sailed with a ship and I can't get my order in, I could wait 6 months to come back. But the other issue is you have to understand that retail is facing serious problems with Amazon, and not so much with Walmart, because it's a shop you can walk into. But Amazon has got a big play in the game. And downtown is an issue for parking, traffic circulation, and fines with meters and things of that nature. So we have a disadvantage to one degree. We are using 85% of every dollar we take in is built on, is charged to MasterCard, Visa, or some other program. Now, those charges, if you see on the cards as American Airlines or some bank, these guys are all giving you benefits for shopping with those cards. We're paying for that. We have no choice. We have to play the game. So what you're trying to do is accommodate a customer that they can charge MasterCharge and they can pay 1 bill a month, which is great. But 85% of our costs on those charges, 85% of the cash we take in is all on those cards. Now, freight's gone up. I still get a trucking charge for fuel charge on freight. I bring in a pair of boots, a pair of Chippewa boots, and I pay a $5 fee for freight. Now, customer has to pay that somehow. When you walk into my store, or our store, my son's store and my store, you walk into our store, you wanna give an amenity. A lot of stores don't have bathrooms. If I can pick up a customer for the price of a flush, I appreciate that. A lot of stores don't have that amenity. We have clean bathrooms, everybody can use it. We give away free popcorn. I have people come in that really need popcorn. The kids from the Boys and Girls Shop, every day they come in before they go to the store, before they go to the shop, their voice club. We don't bother them. But this is our future customer. What you're trying to build is a relationship with the community. The bag is an issue. Half of the bag is paid for by vendors generally. This bag right here cost me about 7 cents. The bigger, well actually this is 10 cents. The smaller bag is 7 cents. The big bag you saw that I brought in is like 55 cents. Now I can't charge a customer 55 cents. Fortunately, Vermont doesn't have sales tax on clothing and footwear. If they did, all the stores would move to Keene. So we've lost a lot of shopping. What you've lost is disposable. You've lost the ability to buy different products from town. You don't have many shoe stores. You don't have any ladies stores. You don't have any men's stores. So all the amenities you need to attract a customer are part of doing business. Now, we open every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. Why do we do that? Because when Walmart came in, we knew that they were going to take 7% of our, 8% of our customers. So we opened up Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, hoping we could get 1% of theirs. If we get 1% of theirs, we'd have a net gain. So when they came in, we looked at all our policies. We tried to straighten out the whole program. Now, you've lost, well, a lot of people don't remember Montgomery Ward and Grant and those guys, but we lost all of the outlet centers, the downtown store, Giant store, and a couple other stores. You've lost Penny's, you've lost Home Depot, you've lost all these shops. And you know, when you try and find a place you can shop, you're gonna go someplace where the stores are open. So we're trying to accommodate all our customers. Customer walks down the street with one of our bags with a plastic hole in it. He can go walk down the street and he can look for his car keys or whatever. When you take a paper bag, unless you buy an expensive bag, and I can't afford those bags are like 45, 50 cents a piece. So I'm gonna charge a customer 10 cents for them.
How much is that? How much mils is that bag?
This bag is one mil on the top,
Two on the top.
2 mil on the bottom.
So
wait, one on top and
2 on the
bottom?
top.
Other way around.
2 on the top, you're right.
Okay.
2 on the top, 1 on the bottom. A little over one.
if you don't mind, so if you were us up here, we're trying to be responsive to a very important, initiative from the citizens. And we're also trying to be responsive to your needs and not increase your costs too much. You gave us some initial numbers based on the initial 3.0 ordinance that we had proposed. You're sitting right next to, one of the proponents of.
I have no problem with it. I think.
What can you give us that'll help us feel comfortable doing a little more than the 1 mil? Help us out
Any
here.
reason why you couldn't use a bag like that, a reusable bag, I'd fly you, tell me why. Now, I use this bag for my wastebasket at home.
Two uses.
I just
I-
want to say, when you
Wait,
go
wait,
in
wait.
for public comment and then ask one business and do this negotiation, it is really, really upsetting. As it's very upsetting
Okay.
to see this negotiation with
Yeah.
one business person in
Yeah.
the select board when the
Yeah.
public comment was
Right.
closed
Yeah.
and all of these comments were heard. This feels
We hear
inappropriate.
ya. We hear ya. We hear ya. We hear ya.
You asked me a question.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
no,
it's-
I'm trying to reach some sort of.
Yeah, we hear ya.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's why, I mean, it's.
so what, Brian, did you wanna say something? Okay.
I'm.
See, and I think that's where we get into a problem here, is that everybody has a different idea of this plastic issue. And tonight, I've heard the gamut of everybody's reaction of, what is necessary to get plastic off. I've heard not so much on the 1 mil, but from the 1 mil up. So for us, we have to make this decision, and again, it is a little bit. I'm trying to think of the word now, but hurtful to some of the people out there that can't afford to buy a bag. I mean, there really is that discrepancy there. So, I mean, I'm just trying to come up with something that gets to the heart of what the article was, and to try to appease as many as we can with this one action. Nothing against Pal. He raises some good issues. Everybody else has raised some great issues. But again, we have to look out for the town. And I think, again, that's why I'm going back to the 1 mil, and because I think that was the heart of it to begin with.
Yeah, David.
Well, you're right, we have to decide, and so I'm gonna start the bidding, and we'll just start voting and see where we come down. So I'm gonna move that we amend the current ordinance, what would be page 3 if it were numbered, where it says thin film, single-use plastic bag means a bag with a thickness of, I would amend that to 2.5 mils or less, and which are intended for single-use transport and purchase of products. Where are we?
We have a motion to change the thickness, which would be, as David said, on page, would actually be page, I guess, 1, 2, 3, to read, instead of 1 mil, 2.5 mil. Now, what I want to explain to everybody is if we change this tonight, it does not mean it's the ordinance. What it would mean is we go back and do another first reading and come back through the process, or second reading.
Yeah. May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, just procedurally so everybody understands what's happening, that the ordinances always have to be read twice. So there's a time when it's introduced as the action that's intended to be taken, and then it's brought in its formal, legal style, ready to be adopted. That's the second reading of the ordinance. If it's changed on second reading, then it comes back again to the next select board meeting to be heard a second time on that same action. So if it's modified tonight, what came to the board tonight based on prior discussion was a 1 mil thickness, was going to be the thickness of the band. So if it changes to 2.5 or anything other than 1 mil this evening,
We have to start
it'll
again.
not all over again,
Right.
but it will come back again 2 weeks from tonight and be on the agenda at that other specified thickness.
As a second reading or a first?
As a second reading,
Okay.
ready for your adoption.
Okay.
Does anyone on the select board have any comments?
I just wanted to apologize. Abby, it wasn't my intention to close the public out of that, what sounded like a negotiation. I was really just trying to get a read on where PAL stood with cost versus thickness. So I apologize for taking that line.
Okay, we have a motion to amend what would be page 3. The definition of a thin film, single-use plastic bag means a bag with a thickness of 2.5 mils or less, and which are intended for single-use transport of purchased products. Does anyone on the board have any more comments? Okay, all those in favor of that amendment, I guess please say aye and raise your hand so we know. Please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. The motion fails by 3-2 vote, or 2 for, 3 against. Jan will write that down right. Okay, so we're back down to the definition of a thin film, single-use plastic bag to be 1 mil or less.
I'd like to raise that as a motion.
All right, John has made a motion. Actually, what you want to do, can I clarify what you
Yep.
want to do? Is you want to adopt.
As it's written.
Yeah.
There's a motion in there.
So you want to, John, would your motion be to approve the amendments to Chapter 7 as presented? Hey, John?
Oh, it is? Yes.
Would your motion be to approve the amendments to Chapter 7 as presented?
Yep. There it is.
Okay, John has made a motion to approve the amendments to Chapter 7 as presented. Is there any comment by
What's the amendment? What are we changing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
We're back to the beginning.
We're back to the
Oh, yeah.
original.
Okay,
So-
we're not amending it.
You're not amending the document that was presented to you this evening. What you'd be doing is adopting
The old
the document
previous-
presented to you,
Yeah.
which would then, by that adoption, amend the town ordinances.
Does that make sense to everybody?
It does?
Just to confuse everybody. Does anyone on the select board have any comments or questions? So we have a motion to approve the amendments to Chapter 7 as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion does not carry. So now we have nothing. Okay, Brandy.
Now we arm wrestle.
I would move that we make an amendment to change it back to the original stated 3 mil, as Patrick proposed it the first time he proposed it.
Brandy has made a motion to.
2.5 didn't pass.
To amend what would be page 3, so that the definition of a thin film single-use plastic bag means a bag with a thickness of 3 mils or less, which are intended for single-use transport of purchased product. Is that correct?
Sounds perfect. Kate.
Perfect. Anyone have any comments on the select board about that? Okay, we have a motion, so all those in favor of changing the definition of a thin film single-use plastic bag to mean a bag with a thickness of 3 mils or less, signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay, 2. All those opposed? Motion is defeated.
I have a motion.
Let's keep going. Yes, David.
I move to amend the thickness, the aforementioned thickness
He already
on
made-
page 3
Yeah.
to,
Why don't you make one?
2.0 mil. And for those of you that don't know, the sausage and policy, you don't want to see it.
Hey, David, would you friendly, would you allow, no. Would you allow Tim to make a motion?
But I just made one.
I know, but you've already made one, and I was wondering if he had something different in his
Well,
hand.
let's vote on mine and then we'll try to.
Okay, so we have
Okay.
a motion to change what would be page 3 to,
do you
the
think?
thin film single-use plastic bag means a bag with a thickness of 2 mils or less. So all those in favor of changing it to 2 mils or less, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion? Motion is defeated.
Good, good.
Okay.
It's only one
I
number
would like
left.
to make a motion to align ourselves with California's current successful plastic bag single-use ban of 2.25 mils.
Okay, so now we have a motion to change what would be page 3, and change the thickness to read, thin film single-use plastic bag means a bag with a thickness of 2.25 mils. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone have any comments on that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand so we can tell.
Aye.
3, all those opposed? Motion carries 3-2. It has been.
That's the magic number.
It has been, the ordinance has been amended so that page 3 reads thin-use, single-use paper bags means a bag with a thickness of 2.25 mils or less, and which is intended for single-use transport. So now what's gonna happen is
Abby,
this.
can you show us
In case you wanted to see.
Right in between those.
Yeah, hey, everybody.
Everything
On the other
from
side.
here.
You guys, here's what's gonna happen next, at next meeting, we will come back and we will vote on this for a final time. Do you have a clarifying question? At this point, well, that's another thing we need to clarify.
I can speak
Yeah.
to that. So there was some confusion about that during the discussion. I didn't speak up at that time because I think the conversation that was going on in the room at that time was focused on the most important date. The confusion came in because of the procedural date. So there's a legal process by which this gets advertised after it's acted upon by the select board, and then it goes into effect. That, as it was written for tonight's consideration, is the 6th day of January 2018, but that just means that the town's ordinance, the law that applies to this, has been changed effective as of that date. The law, as it's currently written, in the form that you have tentatively approved it this evening, has the calendar for phased implementation that was discussed during the substantive discussion. So July of 2018 would be when the first deadline date arrives. And if there are businesses who believe that they would have some hardship in complying by that date, there's a provision in this ordinance that would allow them to request an extension for their particular situation.
Yeah, and if you look at what would be page 4 if it had numbers,
Date
Article
of
6 says date of effect, which is, shall take effect July 1st, 2018.
And so that, while what you would see before the select board 2 weeks from tonight for final action, if they're ready to take final action that evening, would have the change in it that they just approved for the 2.25 mils, and would have a different effective date on the front page because of this procedural matter for how an ordinance gets adopted under the statutes. Unless there's some additional action taken this evening by the board on that question, the effective date of how the regulation will go into effect and impact the businesses would remain as written in the ordinance tonight with an initial effective date of July 2018.
Seems kind of, well, can I just make an argument for keeping it that way? I think it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, ban all bags right now, but we have to take into consideration that there are business people involved in this. And, you know, it may not impact us, but I think if we're gonna do something, we need to give people the 6 months to do it. Because people, as, you know, Pal was just saying, you don't overnight just order a bag and it comes. I mean, that's why I personally think it's really important that we give the merchants and business owners in this town the thing, and to say that they have to have this all figured out by January 1st, I don't think that's realistic.
No.
Are you okay with the additional extension time on top of that being another 6 months?
Yes. I mean, I just think that, you know, again, we heard Pal talking about lead time and ordering things, and I think that I don't know, that's just the way I feel. But
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
okay, so what's gonna happen at the next meeting, whatever our next meeting date is, because we're all
21st,
confused. The
November
21st of November. This will go for a second reading, and we'll see what happens then. Okay, thank you, everybody. Next up is new business, and the first new business is a request from Groundworks Collaborative for $10,000 to support the seasonal overflow shelter. And I know that Josh Davis is here. And could you move this stuff off this table? Thank you. I'll let Josh sit there.
Interrogation here.
Yes.
I'm Bill, Brattleboro, Main Street. My concern is when I come here and turn my hearing aid on, I still can't hear.
Yeah.
I try to watch this on television, and I can hear you, and I can hear you, and that's it.
Okay, so we'll project.
Well, see, you have to remember to do that next meeting.
We will.
Okay.
We promise.
Maybe somebody could be in charge of that.
Thank you for that feedback.
We'll make John remind us.
I'll give lessons in
Okay, so I
projection.
guess we got Josh Davis here from Groundworks, and you're going to explain to us what you're doing and why you want $10,000.
Speak up, Josh.
Thank you, John. Bill, I'll try to speak up.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm here tonight. I submitted a letter along with our request. I believe select board members got that letter. I'm happy to talk through the details of the overflow shelter. I also have some updates on a revised budget. As you know, the overflow shelter for the past 10 seasons has been at the First Baptist Church. We did an exhaustive search. I think we walked through over 25 properties to try and find a new space for the overflow shelter when it was sold. At the end of our rope, fortunately, Winston Prouty came forward and said that they would be willing to host the shelter, and the space is great. We have 33 beds, which is up from 20 that we had in the past. We actually have more than one bathroom, and we have showers so that people can take a shower when they stay with us. It's fantastic. In making this move, we re-evaluated the program. We needed to move from a volunteer-based model to a staffing model. So along with moving the site, we've also incurred considerable more expenses in bringing a staff model. Last year, the overflow shelter cost Groundworks Collaborative $41,000. This year, that budget is just under $200,000. We've done the best that we could over the course of the last few months to raise all the funds needed. We're just shy. This was in the letter. A couple of updates to hammer home. The first of which is that along with the changes to the space, we also have more community participation this year, which I'm really pleased with. So we have a mental health clinician that's coming from the Brattleboro Retreat, an alcohol and drug counselor from HCRS, and an RN from BMH that will all spend significant time at the Overflow shelter. Also, I'm pleased to report that with the generous support of the Thompson Trust, we were able to purchase a van. So we will be transporting clients from the drop-in center to the shelter at Winston Prouty and then back to the drop-in center in the morning. We've hired 8 staff members so far, and all of which are at a training tonight as we speak, getting ready for Monday's opening. The shelter's not open yet, but we're planning to open on Monday for our first night, and we have another couple people to hire. Any questions on the operations itself?
Sounds good, Josh.
No.
Sounds like you're doing good.
I do have a revised budget. I don't think I made copies for the whole town.
That's okay. We can share.
Yeah, we can
And
share.
then we'll make sure Jan gets a copy. For the record.
There you are. No copy for myself. Patrick. A couple of things to point out. We have reduced expenditures by $7,793 from the original budget that I submitted to an updated $195,775 total expenses for the program. We're honing in on actual expenses. This is our first time running this program in this location and with staff, so we're fine-tuning as we get closer to opening, and will continue to over the course of the season. We also did not open on November 1st as we originally budgeted. We weren't ready for staffing, but also the weather up until the last few days was cooperating with us, so there was a little cost savings there as well. Since I submitted the letter, we've had tremendous response to our call for additional funds, and in total we've raised $178,220. That leaves our gap at just under $18,000. And you can see that reflected on this budget on the income side, both pending foundations and trusts. We have $8,000 of grants that we have submitted and we're waiting to hear back. And then we have the $10,000 that's requested to you tonight.
Josh, would you say a little bit about the facility and the advantages of the facility, and what are some of the services that are available? I mean, what's it like, and what are people going to be able to do there? That,
I've been able to tour a number of people that have both stayed at and worked at the previous shelter. The first thing that strikes you when you walk into the building is that it's like a college dorm. And so, dormitory is the word on people's minds when they walk into the space. But specifically what it allows us to do is it's 2 stories. We'll be able to separate men and women on 2 separate floors. We also have 11 rooms. We'll have 3 beds in each room. So the rooms are relatively spacious. Our occupancy is topped out at 33, so we're not going to put any more than 3 beds in any room unless our need changes where we have to be flexible with that. We do have a space for people to congregate and for a meal to be served. And then we have an office space with a closed door where we can discuss either with a clinician or with a case manager more pertinent details with somebody. We didn't have that luxury in the past. As many folks know, we were in the church building. It was all one large room. And so any of these things that I'm talking about, privacy was not something that we had the luxury of. We also have, just to say in the First Baptist Church, I know I underscored it, but we didn't have a way to separate people. And so it was,
one big room.
One big room. And so if 2 people didn't agree with one another, it's basically, okay, you move over here, you move over there. And so now we'll have multiple spots that we'll be able to.
Are they like group shower rooms or showers and laundry facilities available?
We don't have laundry up there. We do have laundry at the drop-in center on 60 South Main that folks can access during the day. There are 2 showers in one of the bathrooms upstairs, and then in the 2 bathrooms downstairs, it's just 1 shower in the room that blocks. So one person at a time. Yeah.
Is there flexibility provided for visitors who may not identify with either gender?
Absolutely. Because we have the ability to have separate rooms,
Yeah.
we can make changes based on the need of people coming through the door.
Great, thank you.
Again, that's something that we were able to offer
Yeah.
in the past.
Do you want to tell us anything more about, do you want to tell us why you need the, I mean, you're asking for 10.
We're asking for 10.
Yeah, and this is sort of a non-traditional ask.
Yep.
Because we don't traditionally, I'm saying that because we don't traditionally do this. And usually the funding comes during the human service
Right.
Portion of the town budget.
We access that funding. We heavily rely on that funding. I was looking at our numbers in the
Yeah.
budget proposal
Yeah.
tonight. It's something that we really rely on.
Yep.
It's a non-traditional ask. It's a non-traditional year for the program. And we're trying to pull money from anywhere we can to make sure that we can get through the entire season.
And you anticipate that this will probably be a one-time ask?
This is a one-time
And I
ask.
want to clarify with the town manager that this is not coming out of general fund. Would this come out of our program income, which is the revolving loan fund?
That is our recommendation. If you
Yeah.
approve the request tonight, it would come from the revolving loan fund because that is funding that originated as community development block grant and therefore is restricted to uses for economic development projects and housing projects. And so this being a project that would meet a housing need in the community, it's appropriate to use program income. And by doing that, because this is an unusual circumstance, an unusual request, it means that it sort of maintains the integrity of the Human Services Committee of the representative town meeting being the place where nonprofit organizations in our community that serve a variety of social service needs go to for tax support from the community. And in this unusual circumstance, rather than drawing on taxes from the community, we would draw on the program income fund.
Yeah, this is, well, it's not unusual. I mean, this is usual at this point. What's unusual is the degree of the problem, and it's unusual to have such a good facility, such a good option. And we here have heard just for years, several years now, that the 4 years I've been on the board, that we have to do something about the homelessness, homes. We hear it over and over and over again. So to not support this would be, I couldn't imagine not doing it. And if somebody hasn't already, I encourage you to immediately sit down with the committee and get on the list for next year, because I don't see any reason that we shouldn't continue to support this if we can. I mean, the resources are needed, they're not coming from anywhere else. And I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said we have to do something about homelessness. And $10,000 is
Drop in the bucket.
I'm completely in support of this.
Does anyone else? have-
Feel free to get in the same kind of motion exchange to up that $10,000.
See, I knew that was coming.
That's the
Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
So you go to 22.5?
Yeah. So does anyone else on the board have any comments or questions? Does anyone in the public have any comments or
great
questions? Okay. Well, does anyone want
Why
to?
aren't you asking for 18 if that's what you need?
It's a great question. I think 10,000 in good faith with the 8,000 that we have out there with other grants will help us meet our bottom line. And so 10,000 is what we need tonight, and so that's what we're asking for.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the town would encourage the community
Right,
to
to-
step up for the rest.
Because anytime, David, somebody says to you, we should help the homeless, we can say, there's an organization that can use
Yep.
even a
And-
dollar, every dollar helps.
Or towels or soap or
Yes.
everything imaginable.
Yep.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
would you like a motion?
I would love a motion.
To approve expenditure of $10,000 from program income to support Groundworks Collaborative's operation of the seasonal overflow shelter in Brattleboro for 2017 and 18.
John has made a motion to approve the expenditure of $10,000 from program income to support Groundworks Collaborative. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Josh.
I appreciate it. I would like to give you updates throughout the season,
Yes.
and so coming back maybe mid-season and
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
at the end to tell you how
We'd
it
appreciate
goes and
that.
what we're learning. Thank you.
I appreciate that a lot. Okay. think we should just go over that. Okay, next up is we're gonna talk about the FY19 town budget.
This is gonna be fun.
And our town manager is gonna give us an update.
Molly.
So I'm going to spend the next few minutes providing an overview of the proposed budget. Staff has been working for the last 6 weeks or so on the development of this budget that's before you this evening. We look forward to working with you in the weeks ahead to go through the details of what's proposed here. Tonight, the purpose of the item tonight is simply for your benefit and especially the public's benefit to provide some highlights to kind of get a feel for the overall magnitude of the FY19 budget and how it is similar in most ways and different in a few ways from the town's recent budgets. So we do this in the context of the continued implementation of the action items from the comprehensive review of town operations and the update of the long-term financial plan, which we had on our last agenda. We discussed that 3 weeks ago tonight. This is the one-year snapshot that is our next step forward in the longer-term perspective of how we are managing town finances and addressing town needs. In the work that we've done together over these last few years, we've made some real strides. We're funding much more of our capital improvement needs with real-time revenues, with current cash, than we were in the past. That's important and makes us more financially stable in the long run. And there are quite a number of needs that we've been able to address that have added cost to the town's budget because we've also been able to find ways to save substantial amounts of money, particularly in the areas of employee benefits in a way that I'll talk more specifically about in just a moment. Without reducing the value of those benefits, we've found very substantial savings there, and the net of that is that we're accomplishing some things that we really needed to address without substantially adding to the town's budget. But there are two very significant items that we've addressed as concerns for us in terms of our long-term financial health that we've not made progress on, not significant progress on. And we need to make our decisions this year and going forward in the context of knowing that we still have heavy lifting to do in these two areas. One is that we don't yet have a realistic and sustainable capital plan. The capital needs that we've identified are between $2.5 and $3 million a year. The capital funding that recurs from year to year is approaching $1 million a year. So that substantial gap is something that's going to be a continuing challenge for us. The second item on which we've not made much progress is one on which we have a limited ability to make progress at the current time under state law, and that is our very heavy reliance on the property tax. So when we do incur either incremental increases in just the cost of doing business, just like costs go up for businesses and costs go up for households, the cost of town government does go up. When we incur those costs or when we attempt to invest in a new initiative, more often than not, and to a very great degree, the cost has to be borne by increased property taxes because state law limits what options municipalities have available to us for collecting other kinds of revenue besides property taxes. Together with the staff at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, we've initiated a process where we'll soon be gathering other hub towns together in the hope that we'll have two different things that will come out of that, two different benefits that we hope will come out of that. One that's a relatively shorter term potential benefit of this is learning from each other about different ways in which communities are coping with this challenge. So there might be some ways that in perhaps as soon as the next budget that we propose to you, we're able to do some things that other communities have found a way to be creative with, even within the current constraints that we didn't know about. And hopefully they'll learn some things from us as well. But even more important than that, what we think is we'll identify some ways to work together with the VLCT and the other municipalities to seek some changes in Vermont law that will provide some flexibility, if not to all communities, at least to hub communities, since we have a particular burden we bear being the center of activity for our regions. So with those two things as sort of the background, but really significant overarching issues, I wanted to say that in the proposed budget, specific to this 1 year, there's one additional thing that we will be talking about as we get closer to the end of this process in January that we don't have enough detail on right now to have blended into this budget, and that's the municipal center project that we're hoping to undertake in the year ahead. So the state has indicated its desire to be a partner. You know that you've approved the letter of intent, so we have a blueprint for how we would move forward together towards a project. We're working on the details of the lease right now, but there is yet a project to be scoped and designed together with the state. We expect that when that work is done, there will need to be funds borrowed in order to proceed with the project, but we believe that the state's capital contribution to the project and the state's rent that they'll pay on an ongoing basis for the monthly occupancy in the space will carry the majority of the cost for paying off that debt, and that there will be some but limited financial impact to the town's budget. Those proportions will become clearer in the weeks ahead, and we expect to be able to address that with you in January and then with representative town meeting in March. So the rest of what I'm going to talk about is what we do know at this point and what is in this proposed budget, with a healthy respect for the fact that between now and 2.5 months from now, we will have gone through in great detail all of these different things we'll mention tonight and many other issues, and arrive at a place where you feel comfortable approving a budget that won't look just like this, but I think in important ways will reflect the things we're going to talk about tonight. And then you'll send that recommendation on for representative town meeting consideration. The revenues that come in to provide the funding for the expenses of town government include, the broad categories include property taxes, which again is the overwhelming majority of our proposed $17.5 million budget. More than $14.5 million come from property taxes. There's about $365,000 from the rooms and meals taxes. $315,000 transferred from other funds. We propose a use of fund balance that has accumulated from prior years of $800,000, and all other forms of revenue combined amount to about $1.4 million. The property tax component of that at the proposed $14.67 million would add about 3.5 cents, just under 3.5 cents to the tax rate, which means that for every $100,000 of property value, a taxpayer would pay $34.20 additional for the year, or $8.55 per quarter for this proposed budget if it were approved as proposed. The rooms and meals taxes are proposed to increase over last year by about $15,000. That's actually an increase over the budget of last year, but not an increase over the actual receipts from last year. And it's a conservative estimate based on the fact that we've seen substantial increases in that particular form of revenue over the last 3 or 4 years.
Peter, what was the percentage that you said just before that got us to the 3420?
The percentage increase, I didn't say, so thanks for asking, is 2.8.
Okay, all right.
2.8% increase, or 3.4 cents.
Right.
Yep. And that's back to the property taxes. The rooms and meals percentage increase is 4.3%, $15,000. Our transfer from other funds is actually proposed to decrease slightly compared to last year. That's only because last year we bought a street sweeper, and the parking fund paid for half of that because the street sweeper sweeps the parking lots in addition to the streets. So when you factor out that capital investment from last year, the transfer from other funds just slightly increases in this proposed budget. For a use of fund balance, we're proposing $800,000. We'll have a longer, more detailed discussion on another evening about the philosophical basis for how we use fund balance and when we use fund balance. Just as a one-liner for this evening, I'll reinforce that our recommendation is always to use fund balance for non-recurring expenses, since it is a non-recurring revenue. And so we sort of allocate in this proposed budget that $800,000 as $500,000 towards the purchase of an aerial ladder truck for the fire department, and $300,000 towards 3 other capital purchases, 2 of them pieces of equipment, and 1 a energy efficiency project. The other revenue account is slightly decreased over prior years, and that's, again, a continuing challenge for us that relates to that issue that I talked about, where we need to work on developing options for how municipalities in Vermont can collect sources of revenue other than the property tax.
Can you just throw out what does that cover right now?
Other revenue?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of different things. Let me.
Well, you didn't have to make an exhaustive list.
It's going to be fees and fines, and some of those are relatively larger. Some of them are really small, like the $25 permit fees that somebody takes out in order to be able to hold an event downtown. Pulling a permit to put out a table to give information on the sidewalk, on the gallery walk night, that sort of thing. There's a lot of small pieces like that. The banner revenue, which is a relatively small.
Recreation and parks.
Recreation and parks fees is a more substantial
Okay.
one that's embedded within that. Represents actually a pretty substantial amount of that $1.4 million. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars of it. And we will go through, when we get to talking about the schedule at the end of this item, I'm going to propose to you that at the next select board meeting on November 21st, we actually go through the revenue part of the budget in detail. You'll be looking at all those individual different pieces.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's good. Moving to expenditures. The town, being the deliverer of services to the community, is very heavily dependent on people, and therefore a preponderance of our costs are staffing costs, both salaries and benefits for employees. Our staffing apples to apples comparison from last year's budget to this proposed budget is a 1.8% increase at about $125,000 increase. I say apples to apples because I'm also proposing, as we've discussed on prior evenings, and we'll go into in great detail on a different evening during this budget process in the weeks ahead, I'm proposing a $60,000 investment for the creation of a new position as a human resources professional. An organization of our size and complexity really needs to have an HR professional, and that also will relate to and support the work that we've been discussing undertaking related to increasing the diversity and inclusiveness of the town staff. I want to note that the $60,000 is what I estimate to be a salary that would be appropriate to hire a well-qualified person at a management team level qualification to be an HR professional. I didn't at this time propose funding for the benefits for that person. Obviously, they'll be entitled to benefits, but the largest single expense for the town for employee benefits is in the health insurance program, and that can be it is variable depending on the personal circumstances of individuals. So if this is an individual who actually comes with health insurance already provided to their household, they might waive that benefit. If they come and only need single coverage, it'll be more affordable to the town than if they need family coverage. And since we can't predict any of that accurately, and because in a budget of $17 million, there's always some play, there's always some costs that we're able to avoid. Most often it's because of vacant positions that during the course of the year save the budget some money, but there's other ways in which there's always some things that are going to cost us something more than what we expected, and others that cost us less. The net of that is usually a small surplus. Occasionally it's a larger surplus. And so we feel safe and we feel that it's more responsible not to overestimate the cost of this position by predicting those benefits, but rather putting a full amount of funding for the salary of the position in this year, and then having a properly calibrated benefit cost increase next year if you do approve this position. So that's why it's presented in the manner that it is. If you add that $60,000 into the staffing, the overall cost of staffing for town government of the salaries and related direct compensation increases by $185,000 instead of $125,000, which is a 2.7% increase instead of a 1.8% increase. In the employee benefits category, we propose a 2.2% increase of about $66,000. That's the increase, and in every other item that I'm discussing tonight, when I talk about something that increases or decreases, I'm talking about that in relation to the adopted FY18 budget, the current budget that we're implementing right now that was approved by town meeting back in March. And this one, I want to point out that 18 to 19 increase is about $66,000 or 2.2%. But even after that increase, we are still almost 4% lower than we were the year before. Because we've implemented the changes in the retirement program and in the health insurance program, in the case of health insurance, maintaining the same quality and value of the benefit for employees, and in the case of the retirement program, actually improving the quality of the benefit for a majority of town employees. But we were able to do that in a way that restructured those and is saving the town a substantial amount of money. The FY19 proposed amounts for employee benefits in total are $122,000 less than what we were paying for those benefits in FY17.
Fantastic.
Risk management, on the other hand, is showing substantially increased cost for workers' compensation. We've talked about that before. We will talk about it again later in the process. There are steps we've taken to better manage workers' compensation and control these cost increases, but because the premiums for workers' compensation, like many other insurance programs, are set actuarially over multi-year averages, it will take a while for the improvements that we've made, even if we see success with those changes in real time, it's going to take several years before we start to see the positive impact of those changes on our workers' compensation budget. So of the $66,000 or 10% of increase in insurance costs for the town in the coming year, $50,000 of that, the overwhelming majority of that, is in workers' compensation. The remaining $16,850 is an increase in the general liability insurance in order to cover the additional value of property that we're protecting with the replaced West Brattleboro Fire Station, the expanded Central Fire Station, and the new police station at 62 Black Mountain Road. The department expenses, which are the $1.9 million worth of costs that are all the variety of things that keep the departments functioning, the non-personnel expenses that are relatively more controllable by the individual departments, are actually decreasing from last year's budget slightly. They're basically flat, going down from $1.886 million to $1.881 million. So that's a 0.3% decrease. The point there is the department heads and their staffs are, again, as they have for years in a row now, keeping the belt nice and tight. It long since got tightened. Each year that I've been here, that number has either been flat or has decreased. And so I take my hat off to the teammates who are throughout the room here who, for that part of the budget that they have direct control over, continue to just find ways to be creative and be frugal in the expenditure of taxpayer funds. The legal expenses of the town are proposed to increase incrementally, a 1.9% increase of a little over $2,000 from $110,000 to $112,000 for FY19. The human services budget is what we spoke to a few moments ago on the Groundworks item, that there's about $140,000 worth of allocations to a variety of different worthy causes, different nonprofit enterprises in our community that serve a wide array of needs for people in the community, and in some cases people of the region. And so those decisions are made by a committee of representative town meeting who recommends through an application process and a review process, recommends the specific funding to the specific agencies. That's the taxpayer-supported component of supporting the nonprofit work of our community. In anticipation of that committee work and the specific recommendations that'll be forthcoming, we've simply held a placeholder of level funding from FY18 to FY19 in this proposed budget. The transfer to solid waste includes, well, actually, the funding of the solid waste program includes two separate revenue components. So there is the revenue that we make on the sale of the pay-as-you-throw bags, and then there's a subsidy that's provided from the general fund to the solid waste fund. That subsidy, you'll recall, we actually had to make a mid-year supplemental transfer this past year, which, while it was financially inconvenient, was actually a sign of great success in the community's transition to pay-as-you-throw. So, so much of the waste stream in Brattleboro has now been diverted into recycling and composting that we're not selling as many pay-as-you-throw bags for the garbage part of the waste stream as what we had expected. Therefore, we're not making as much money from that part of the revenue stream. The costs don't go down, so we've got to supplement. The balancing number has to come from the operating fund and be a transfer from the general fund into the solid waste fund. We're recommending that that be increased from FY18 to FY19 by 9% or $38,000.
We were hoping that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually, it's a good thing
It's a
in the
good
big
thing.
picture. And while it surprised us last year,
Yeah.
once we realized what was happening, we were able to make the adjustments necessary.
Right.
So it's not a surprise this year. It's
Right.
a significant increase in this one line item, but it's a
Good increase.
budget impact that we were anticipating and knew we would be recommending to you at this time. The next categories of expenditure are the two transfers to capital, transfer for capital equipment and transfer for capital projects. And on that, I want to just say that the overall magnitude of this is on the order of $2.1 million, with a combination of $500,000 worth of borrowed funds, the $800,000 worth of use of fund balance, and then the balance of about $800,000 being from the operating funds, the real-time revenues of this FY19 budget. We will take a much deeper dive into this, and I'm recommending that we do that at the very next meeting on November 21st, that we would deal with revenues and capital that evening. But because of the magnitude of the individual items and the variety of individual items that individual department heads will need to speak to, I didn't plan to go any further into that this evening unless you need me to. Debt service is going to decrease in the coming year. We've proposed a number that is $124,000 and change, about 7.9% decrease compared to the debt service last year. Our debt service cost is the amount of money we owe on the money that we have borrowed, either in prior years or the first year expense for debt we might incur this year. The decrease in what we will owe in paying back debt from prior years is actually going to go down by closer to $140,000, but there is a $15,000 new debt service cost that we're proposing that relates to the purchase of the borrowing portion of the purchase of the fire ladder trucks. So there's a whole set of different pieces of this, both on the decision regarding that piece of equipment related to the other capital needs of the town, and then the decision, if we do proceed with it, on how to pay for it, that will affect the details of how this actually turns out when our process is finished. But in what's before you this evening, there is that $15,000 of proposed new expense under debt service, which causes the overall impact to be a decline in debt service of $124,475. The catch-all other expenses category is proposed to increase by 4.9%. That's about $45,000. The primary reasons there are an increase in IT licensing and maintenance cost, an increase in what the town pays for our share of the regional services provided by Rescue Inc., and a $10,000 commitment to increasing townwide employee training. The use of fund balance, again, this figures significantly or relates significantly to the decision that you'll make regarding the fire ladder truck. So I won't go into great detail about it right now, except to say that Because of the extraordinary, once every 25 years nature of a purchase of that magnitude, and our available fund balance that we have that could be utilized for paying for a portion of a capital cost of that magnitude, we are actually recommending in the document before you tonight that we drop just slightly below the 10% standard that we try to maintain in our unassigned fund balance to 9.4% just for this 1 year in order to be able to apply $500,000 of fund balance to the purchase of the fire ladder truck. So as we discuss that truck, as we discuss the rest of the capital needs, as we discuss the rest of the budget and the various funding sources that support this, we'll have further conversation about whether or not that's a prudent action and how that relates to the decision in the end for what magnitude of property tax rate is felt to be affordable and acceptable in the budget that you recommend to the representative town meeting. But what's before you tonight does represent a $800,000 use of fund balance where $699,416 is the amount that is above and beyond the 10% marker. To wrap this up, I want to highlight just a few major issues that I think are going to be the most substantive emphasis of our consideration in the weeks ahead. We will go through every line item that you'd like to go through, and we will spend a day when we particularly delve into the specific operations of the different departments so that both for you and the public, there's a reminder and reinforcement of the variety of services that are provided, that are purchased with these dollars, as well as going through carefully the dollars that are proposed to be spent in order to provide the FY19 set of services. But when it comes time for you to make decisions in January, I think you're going to find that most of the vast majority of those line items are places where a little nipping of this and a little nipping of that isn't going to make a material difference. There are a handful of items that are very material in the consideration that we're going to begin soon and continue on through the end of January. And I believe that those include the ladder truck decision, the decision related to the rest of the capital investments, both the other pieces of equipment and the capital projects that are proposed, the decision related to the HR professional that I'm recommending, and to potential other staff positions that have been discussed throughout the year in different contexts of how levels of service might be increased for addressing certain needs within our community. Running parallel to that, alongside that, whether enough new investment, I think there's a decision for the board to make of whether we're proposing enough new investment in proposed social equity initiatives, energy efficiency projects, and other matters that have received substantial consideration by the board during the year. Over the course of these last 7 months, there have been numerous occasions where in the discussion of a substantive matter, the board has indicated a desire to do more, either do something new or do more of something we've already been doing. And each time we talked about the importance of addressing that during the budget process so that those priorities could be weighed in comparison to each other and in comparison to the community's ability to pay. And so this will be the time when we really roll our sleeves up and spend some time looking carefully at those issues. And the last question I pose here is, if you do decide that we haven't proposed enough new investment in those various initiatives, something's got to give. So it's going to be either a larger than proposed tax increase, or it's going to have to involve some savings someplace else. And I expect that in
that's where the fun begins.
After the holidays and in a couple of different meetings in January, we will wrestle hard through that balancing act.
That's what we signed up for.
That's right.
That's the overview.
Yeah.
May I answer any questions?
No,
for you?
this was actually really terrific.
Yes, it was.
And we thank you and all the town staff who we know put
Yes.
hours upon hours upon hours.
Thank you.
Do you want to just, and I know I'm probably jumping the gun, but just to put it in context with everybody, how our plan is to tackle all of this?
Yes.
And
Thank
we have 9 meetings scheduled to
Yes.
deal with this.
So this just came together today, so we'll be publishing this tomorrow and make sure that it's on the website and available for everybody to know the plan for how we'll move forward. But using, as we have the last couple of years, using as much as possible of the regular Tuesday nights, so the regularly scheduled meetings as well as the off Tuesdays when we might otherwise not be meeting between now and the end of January. And then with one deviation from that for Saturday, December 2nd. So that's really the one thing I want to call out.
Right.
Staff was aware that was coming. Select Board has confirmed that they're available that day.
Yeah.
Public probably didn't see that one coming. So I want to make sure people know we're looking at meeting for several hours. It'll probably begin at 9 a.m., but we'll confirm that very soon. We'll get it out to the public so that everybody can be well aware, well in advance. But Saturday, December 2nd, we will spend a longer period of time working through the review of each of the department functions and budgets proposed for FY19. And then we'll take relatively shorter bites or smaller bites on shorter periods of time at the next meeting, the regular Select Board meeting on November 21st to address revenues and the capital request. And then on the regular meetings of December 5th, December 19th, January 2nd, and January 16th, as well as we are holding, we will definitely meet on December 12th, a special meeting just to address budget issues. And we're holding the January 9th and January 23rd as additional nights when we likely will be meeting to address just budget issues. So it's basically every Tuesday night in December and January, except the last Tuesday night in December, plus December 2nd.
So
Clear your calendars.
Yeah, clear your calendars. So in a nutshell, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to learn about the budget and to impart whatever knowledge or comments they want, because there are at this point 9 meetings scheduled to talk about the budget.
There are.
Potential.
And if I may, that's right, there's 9 meetings, 9 potential meetings, 9 slots, time slots that we're holding for this. And at the next meeting 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be talking about the capital program. I see several people in the room who either spoke earlier or have written to us who I know are particularly interested in the sidewalks, both from the investment in maintaining more miles of sidewalk each year, replacing the old broken sidewalks that we have in town, and particularly this year in the sidewalk plowing program. And so the sidewalk plowing program would be an operational expense within the Public Works budget, but the potential purchase of an additional sidewalk plow will be certainly something we'd be discussing 2 weeks from tonight. It is not in the current proposed FY19 budget. It is something that would have to be added to it. We've received a substantial amount of public input about that, and we will be discussing that along with the items that are proposed 2 weeks from tonight when we go over the capital plan.
Now, does anyone on the board have any comments or questions?
Yeah, just one thing I'd like to add to your jobs jar. A couple of times in the past, we talked about we pay the state a fee to process the rooms and meals tax, and then they send back to us as collected.
Right.
And we talked, and John O'Connor was in the conversation at the time, and it looks, my recollection is that it would be to our advantage to do that in-house. And I wonder if we could, between now and our next meeting, get a clarification on that.
We actually know the answer to that, and I'm sorry that I didn't clearly close that loop with you during the year, because we followed up on that after it came up earlier in the year. And what we've learned is the places that are collecting that themselves are collecting it under, they're Rutland and Burlington I know of. I don't know if there are others, but they're doing it under charter changes where they empowered themselves by the legislature approving their changed charters to be the ones who imposed that tax.
You did get back to me on that.
Okay, good.
So the next question is, why haven't we, I guess we're not gonna be able, maybe not be able to do it before July, but it would be.
Right. So yeah, so it would have to be a charter change. It is something we can discuss. I think there's both a legal ramification to that and a question of the increased cost of what it would take to be the taxing authority as opposed to having that done by the state where we just get a portion of it. So there's a process involved in that and a staffing question that we can explore. There's also a legal process that we'd want to get Bob Fisher's advice on as to whether or not the fact that Rutland and Burlington are cities under state law, whether that would have an impact on our ability to do this or whether it wouldn't, and it may not. It may just simply be a matter of getting the charter changed and having the appropriate language in it. So
Yeah,
we'll
the last thing
look
I
at that
heard was
further.
It was just a charter change.
Okay.
Is it unreasonable to ask that you try and make some progress on that? And
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can explore that so that it can be discussed during this process. Since a charter change is, there's a
We're not
longer
gonna be
process
able to
involved in
change
that.
this
I'm
budget.
not sure we're going to get that done.
Yeah.
It's not going to get done in time for the FY19 budget. I'm not sure it's going to get done in time for the 2018 representative town meeting, but we certainly can explore that as we're looking at trying to increase revenue for the
yeah,
town.
I just forgot to follow up on
Sure.
that as well until I
Yep.
saw it again.
No problem. We can do that.
Thanks.
Anybody have anything else? Does anyone in the public have something? Yes, Franz. Please go up to our podium.
Franz Reichman from the Finance Committee. As is so often the case with most people, I found myself recently in a discussion of the proper use of excess fund balance. And I was asked, well, why is it 10%? Why is that the amount of reserve? And of course, it's hard to dislike a number like 10%, easy to calculate, et cetera. But I really didn't have an answer to why 10%. Is that based on general experience or some academic study, or how do we get there?
So somebody else in the room would have to tell you how Brattleboro got there, because that guideline was adopted before I arrived, and we've simply operated under it since I've been here. So I can't tell you exactly how it was determined here that 10% was the right number. What I can tell you is more broadly that it is accepted best practice, both from the Government Finance Officers Association and other authorities who look at public budgeting, that there ought to be an amount of unassigned fund balance that is set aside and protected from being expended each year, so that when something like Tropical Storm Irene happens, the community has some funds to fall back on and address emergency conditions. It also, sometimes it's not an emergency situation caused by nature, but it might be something like the financial collapse of 2008 and 2009, where if that had a significant enough impact on property values and therefore on property taxes, that there would be some need to provide some stability as the community recovers, a region recovers through periods like that. So the practice of having some amount that is set aside for that tax stabilizing purpose is widely accepted as prudent. What's unfortunately not as easy to just put your finger on is how big should that be. So 10% actually, for those, I will say, so there are communities who haven't adopted a standard. There are communities that float with what feels right and good from year to year. And
We used to be one of them.
And we used to be one of them, and that's a place we don't want to go back to. That's a precarious place to be, where you're spending money that isn't going to be a recurring revenue for, if you're not careful with it, you very well might be spending it for recurring expenses and putting yourselves in a position where you've got 1 year that feels better and then a next year where you put yourself in crisis. So you got to be really careful with how you use it, with or without such a guideline, and you want to have such a guideline so you've got some cushion to fall back on in the hard times. For those communities who have adopted a standard, 10% is a pretty low one. So we are in the category we want to be in terms of having actually looked ahead and set aside these funds. It took several years. Once Brattleboro decided to commit to this, it took several years of taking surplus funds and setting them aside, and getting surplus funds again a second year, and setting it aside again to build that up to where it was 10%. And so it's important now that we have that to manage that well and protect it. But having said that, there are lots of communities that have 15% standards or 20% standards or 25% standards. And when you think about it, even 25% would represent 3 months of operating costs to the town. Because the 10%, when we talk about 10% of what? 10% of the annual operating budget. So our annual operating budget is about $17 million. Our 10% standards requires us to keep set aside about $1.7 million. That's only a little over a month's worth of operating revenue. So if we had the financial wherewithal, it would actually be in our collective best interest to set aside more than just the 10%.
I'd say 30.
So I was sort of hoping that some enterprising graduate student had written a doctoral dissertation on the effect of varying amounts of fund balance on municipal operations.
Well, that's what I read.
In New England. But you're not familiar with such.
I'm not familiar with such a study.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Oh, yeah, David.
Franz, I asked that same question when I first came on the board, and the response was that that was the recommendation from the League of Cities and Towns. So that's, we've been following it. They may have found a graduate student to do that work. Or they may have made it up.
I'll ask them.
Yes. Does anyone else have any comments about the budget proposal and our work plan on getting it done? All right, thank you. Thank you to the town manager and all this department heads and staff, and it's a long way to go. Next up, we're gonna have a status report on the town's diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Boy, they can't leave fast enough, can they? There they go. Oh, thank you, Star.
Okay.
Well, you have to lock up.
Okay, we're having a status report from the town manager.
On our diversity, inclusion, and equity actions. So on September 19th, the select board approved the set of recommendations that I offered you that evening, that were the culmination of the work that I had done during the summer, meeting with lots of people in the community and learning as much as I could about what was already going on in our community and around us related to social equity and racial equity work. And so I'm not going to review in detail exactly what that was. I will say for the public's benefit that there are 2 pages of specific recommendations that were laid out in the materials for that September 19th meeting. We discussed them in great detail that night, and you approved them as they were presented to you. In follow-up to that, we knew that some of those, for instance, the hiring of an HR professional and the commitment to, for initial unconscious bias and implicit bias training, and then building upon that for additional diversity and inclusion training, were going to be longer-term initiatives that we would need to invest in over time. But there were some things that we could get at right away. And so, in fact, on those longer-term things, we've taken the first steps by proposing funding in the FY19 budget. And I've continued to learn from people who are doing this work in this field about different options related to the training and different trainers, both organizations and individuals that we might hire to do that, and have proposed to the HR professional. So there is some very beginning movement towards those very longer term investments. I've also provided to you as the final page of the backup for tonight's meeting, something that I'll keep updated for my own purposes and will provide to you from time to time if you want to continue to have these status reports, of just the variety of different ways in which we are trying to fulfill the commitment to walk the walk. So one of the main overarching themes of what came out of the work and our engagement with various individuals and organizations this summer, and the commitment that we've made as town government to this work, is to be visible. Because we serve in positions of leadership within the community, it can make a difference just generally and specifically in support of less visible individuals and groups who are working on this intensely and in a very focused way on an ongoing basis, for us to be with them in this work and to be at their events and supporting the different activities of these different organizations. And so what's identified here on the list of actions to date are about a dozen different ways in which we've done that. Most of them are things I've personally been involved in, because I don't know everything that each of you has personally been involved in. So I know there are more things that would be on this list if it included also all the things you've individually done. The one thing that I did identify as both something I did and several of you did was to sign the letter that would oppose the deportation of Mamadou Ba, which was something we were asked to do in a very urgent manner as that process was unfolding, and it was very disappointing that Mr. Ba had to go to Canada. Hopefully we've not heard the last of that the process still unfolding, that we can continue to be supportive of him and his family, and within our community look to try to get a more just resolution to that. But the other items that you see here thankfully represent, for the most part, engagement in aspects of this work that feel more like they represent progress rather than struggle, although there's certainly strong elements of both in all of the work. So, participating in events that have been organized by, for instance, the Root Social Justice Center or the Civil Rights, the organization that hangs the Civil Rights banner over Main Street, the Brown Bag at the River Garden that was related to white fragility and community conversation around how white people and people of color interact around these issues, and the Circle of Understanding that the BCJC organized also. So one thing I would highlight in terms of just my own experience with this, and Star Latronica, our library director, participated in this as well. We too were fortunate last Thursday and Friday to be two of the approximately 60 participants in the Vermont Vision for a Multicultural Future conference that was held up at the Putney School. And it was a really rich, open dialogue. It was a loosely structured, there was structure to it, but it was a loosely structured gathering so that the participants dictated to a very great degree the topics that were addressed and the manner in which we addressed them together, all with the purpose of finding ways more broadly throughout Vermont of embracing a multicultural future that is really in many ways already here and emerging, but needs our fostering. The participants in that particular event, which was organized by the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity, included about half of the participants or more were actually employees of state government from several different departments. There were also several legislators there, and a few other municipalities that participated, and lots of individuals who self-selected. So that we got a lot of good ideas, and also built a lot of good connections with people for how we can continue to move forward with the work. Looking forward, things that are not on this list, there's two separate things I want to mention tonight. One is that I will be getting together in another week with the committee of people that's already established to plan Diversity Day for next spring. We talked about that on September 19th, that we have an opportunity with the town re-engaging to create a more robust Diversity Day. At one time a few years back, it had a greater impact for the community than it has in the last few years. So we're going to be looking to do that together with the mostly school system based committee that is planning for that event. And then through the Community Equity Collaborative, the Attorney General and Human Rights Commission is coming to Brattleboro to hold on November 20th in the evening, 5:30 to 7:30 here in the library, a public meeting taking comment on a new state statute that addresses racial disparities in the criminal justice system.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I actually have questions and comments. I asked to have this on the agenda because we hadn't talked about it in a while, and for some reason it took the budget process for me to kind of realize that that there was the urgency and the intensity and the public engagement in this process, and the excellent report that Peter gave us. I just had a sense that things were really starting to move. And then as I looked at the budget process, I realized that it's more the diversity and this entire inclusion and equity and the training and all the things we talked about. Things are happening, but it's really it's sort of in the hopper now. It's not well, it's not what it isn't. It's what it is. To me, it's much more urgent than that. It's much more urgent than waiting until August of 2018 at the earliest for any training to take place, well, even if it were just for the board and the administrative team. And so I wanted to find out if anybody else felt that way, and if there was agreement that we needed to, or that we would like to push that forward. I think if there's not program funding available, we probably have to have a special town meeting to ask the town for the funding to do the training from our reserve funds. But basically, it just feels more important to me than to just put it into the budget process and wait for. And I understand that the human rights position is, we haven't talked about it yet, but I'm sure it's going to have some component of that. But in the meantime, we're advertising for jobs. The other employers in the community are advertising for jobs. The school district will be advertising soon. And we've made some changes and we've added some language, and I know there's a group that's an employment focus group. There's another meeting coming up this month, and they're talking about different ways to search and different ways to get the information out. But it's just the thought of nothing happening from now until August. It feels wrong. It feels like there's way too much interest, way too much need, and I'm aware now, and I wasn't until earlier this year, when we started looking at the administrative reports in the elementary schools, that we have nearly 20% children of color in the town schools. And that just adds urgency to the process. And I wanted to pass, this came to through the school board, and it's from Spoonagavi. Everybody knows Spoon. It was sent to the chair to put it on the to get this on our agenda and to look at how the school district is going to approach this. Robin Morgan brought one of our new board members brought this up to the school board in the summer, and it's become an initiative that we're going to be working on, and hopefully we'll be able to fit some of it into this school year. They also have all the in-service days are planned, and it all has to be planned and done properly, and there's a lot that needs to be done. But this really struck me, this from Spoon. I want to just read a few sections, and I yellowed it there so you can all see it. And Jan, I'll send you an electronic one so you don't have to type it up to get it in the minutes.
Thank you.
But he's talking about a training that he had several years ago. I think it was a group called the People's Institute, but that information is available. But said it's a 2-day affair. It would be mentally fatiguing. It would have to be. There's no way to successfully explore deep-seated cultural and personal beliefs without such effect. To discover that we have beliefs that we were utterly certain did not exist is a rather unsettling experience. If we choose an approach designed to avoid reaching to the personal depths, then it's unlikely we'll develop the motivation to exercise the leadership that will result in a change on the street. And that's articulates really clearly the thing that I've been hearing since, actually before this process began, but certainly since we started talking about it and it came up during the election. And people have been talking about that depth of experience and that sort of really serious approach and really challenging approach. And I would like to see us do it sooner rather than later. And I know, you got more than enough to do, but I think it might be possible to shift some of that work to the school district. Because we've been doing it at the same time, but I really don't want to wait until August. I just don't want this to go through this long process.
And that's the training you're talking about?
Yeah.
In August, okay.
Yeah.
And you were saying what's going to happen in August?
I didn't actually specifically say August. I think the reason.
No, I said August.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because
Okay.
because the beginning of the new fiscal year is July. May I offer a couple of different perspectives on that? So I'd like to make sure that as you have this conversation now and going forward, that we do focus on that. I wouldn't quibble a bit with the idea that training sooner than later would be valuable. Training like next week, which I know you're not suggesting, but training all but immediately in order to do it is something I would caution us to be careful about doing. Absolutely. Because I've received a lot of input, and some of it very conflicting input from people who are really experienced in the field about what kind of training is valuable and some different trainers that ought to have an opportunity to compete for our work, frankly, in terms of like an RFP, that this is what we want to accomplish, and then get some proposals from people and pick the right one and do it. That process alone is going to take, you know, several months, probably, actually, maybe 3 or 4 months to do. And so I wouldn't quibble with the idea that beginning now and holding that, say, in the spring, beats beginning, you know, in the spring or summer and not holding it until the summer or fall. That decision, I think, is purely a policy decision for you as a board of whether you want to spend some unbudgeted FY18 money for that purpose or budget for it for FY19 and implement it then. The one thing I want to make clear, and hopefully we all agree about this, but if you don't, then we need to have some conversation around that, is I think, especially given where we are as an organization embarking on this work, as an organization that hasn't been doing this work. A year ago, we weren't involved in it at all. We, I believe, behaved as consistently as we could, and you know, we intended to behave consistently, always in a compassionate manner. That's how we were doing our business. That's the kind of community we want to be. But that was more inadvertent and philosophical than it was intentional. And we weren't dealing with racial justice and this depth of social equity at all. So given where we were and how it came up and what we've done over the last several months and what we've done actually just since September 19th when the board said, yes, go forth, let's do this, I think is actually significant and is building momentum for us to be involved in lots of different ways and making a positive impact in the community. So I think that we're actually in it. We've gotten started. The question is, where does the training fit into that, and can we and should we accelerate the training into the front end of this activity? But whether the training occurs soon or whether it occurs, 6 to 9 months from now, the work together with the other people in the community who are devoted to this work is already underway, and we'll keep going.
Does that make sense? Or?
Oh yeah, I think and I won't be any surprise that I think that sooner is better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the reason is that the fact that the school district is thinking of doing this is going to be doing this. The town is going to be doing this. We're working with all these other organizations, and this is clearly a great. That's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's other things going on and more things scheduled. But not just for the symbol of it, but just symbolism of it, but the message that it sends to people when they hear about Brattleboro and they're thinking about the people we contact or the institutions that we contact when we're recruiting candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Just the message that this town has made this commitment, that these institutions have done it. It's obviously going to spread out into the community even more. There'll be I think it's the potential to make a really, really positive statement and to just sort of put a mark in the sand. I don't know how to describe it, just to say this is who we are, this is where we are, this is where we want to go, and we're serious about it, and we've already taken these steps. And aside from the fact of all of that, we'll also have a whole body of people who are going to be, when people come to interview or they come to investigate the community, people are going to be much more sensitive, much more aware, and present a much more engaging and welcoming community, which is the thing that pretty much generally everybody agrees is what, it has to be the whole community.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden you've got a few hundred people that are behaving very differently, hopefully, and talking very differently. And I think the synergy of the school and the town doing it at the same time would really be impactful.
Yeah, has the school scheduled theirs yet?
No, we're kind of at this.
Okay.
I'm pretty. No,
They
we talked
haven't.
about it in the summer,
Okay.
and we talked about doing it sooner rather than later.
But there's no
And,
date.
no date yet,
Okay.
no. And it may wind up being in the next school year,
Okay.
because a lot of the in-services are already. But again, there's a sense of urgency on that board as
Mhm,
well,
mhm.
and I think that may, something may be starting ahead of time.
Okay. Good. Just,
My
yeah.
hope is that-
Anyone in the public have any questions, comments?
Jim Levinson from the Compassion Committee. Let me take this just a step further and suggest that what is happening here really has the potential of being a prototype for Vermont, for any area of this country that is not very racially diverse. The systematic process in which this has happened, the intentionality is really marvelous. When we find this graduate student, let's start writing it up. This includes the process, and here this includes David's absolutely stunning historical presentation of what this is really about, and then Peter's recommendations, state-of-the-art recommendations on diversity and the importance of minority and people of color, particularly coming to feel comfortable here. So I would say let's really watch this with avid curiosity and with periodic evaluative assessments, maybe some surveys to see how we're doing. Let's really document it, because we got something very, very special here. More and more indications that this is going to be effective, and if you have any doubts, just ask Brandy about the wonderful way that we welcomed a migrant worker into our community just a week ago Saturday. Okay.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Peter. Next is that status report on the survey of downtown Brattleboro. And I'm taking off my select board hat, putting my Chamber of Commerce hat on. And just a quick recap, and then I'm going to explain a couple of things. The Brattleboro Chamber and the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance sent a poll out, and I know it went other places as well. It was well circulated. As of today, 1,117 people have filled out the survey.
That's good.
I'm not passing out paper copies of it, and I'll tell you exactly why. I think it's important that everybody sees everything, and this is like this thick. And I'm going to go through each question, and give you an idea. But some of the questions we've had like 700 comments on these questions. What I'm going to do is we're going to put a link so people can see it online.
Thank you.
I also think, though, it's really important. I think it's important to be transparent, so I'm thinking it's very important for everyone to see it. I think, however, that everybody who sees it has to be responsible with the information. Because you can take one comment out of 700 and give it importance and it not necessarily have. So I don't know how we say that to people, but I can say to the people here, it's really, I think it's going to be important to take the information and be really responsible in what we do with it. But when you see it, I think it's going to be very clear what's being conveyed. So that's going to happen. Hopefully, if I can get myself together, it'll happen like in a week. But we got to shut the thing off because people are still putting things in. But hopefully in a week we'll have a link. But I'm going to go through each question right now and just give you a little bit of where we are. And there were 10 questions. And again, this is just a summary. There's way more underneath this than what I'm going to say.
Very scientifically done.
Yes. And there's like cross tabs that you can do based on gender and all this kind of stuff. But again, there are 1,100 and there are two more since I did this. 1,117 people filled it out, and the first question was check the one that best applies, and it was I am either a resident of downtown, a property owner downtown, a business owner downtown, an employee downtown, a visitor, or someone who lives in Greater Brattleboro. In a nutshell, most of the people who answered the survey were resident of Greater Brattleboro, about 529 people. They put zip codes in. Most of those zip codes were 05301s. The next highest grouping of people were residents of downtown, and that was about 20% of the people were residents of downtown. So that sort of gives you just a quick summary. We asked, the second question was, how often do you visit downtown Brattleboro? Every day, at least once a week, a few times a month or other. The majority of the people who answered the survey, about 40% of them said they come down every day. The other 33% were once a week. And then there was about 15% of the people said a few times a month. and I'm gonna give this to everybody on paper, so, you know, you had, again, 40% of the people who answered this come down every day. Then we did a good question, what are some of your favorite things about downtown? And 65% of the people said the shops, another 65 said it's all, you could push as many as you wanted. You know, restaurants, the flowers were about 31%, holiday lights 38%, gallery walk 35%, and then there was a whole bunch of others, and they listed a whole bunch of things. So luckily there's a lot of people like what we have to offer downtown. The fourth question was, please rate your reaction to the following statement. There is panhandling in downtown Brattleboro. You could say either maybe, agree, disagree, don't know, or other. It won't be a surprise to anybody who's attended select board meetings that 85% of the people, or 957 people, said they agreed with the statement that there's panhandling in downtown Brattleboro. Disagreed were 18 people. So that sort of shows you that when you say that, they agree.
18 people, not 18%.
Yeah, 18 people, 1.61%. Oh, no, I'm sorry, yeah, disagreed was 18 people. And 38 people didn't know, and 68 people said other. Then the next question, question 5, was, have you been directly asked for money by a panhandler in downtown Brattleboro? The options were yes, no, or other, and please explain. 78.6% of the people, which is 874 people, said yes, they have been directly asked for money by a panhandler. About 17% said no. So about 194 people said they had not been approached by a panhandler. So what you have is people knowing there are panhandlers downtown. The majority of the people who answered the survey said yes, they had been approached by a panhandler or asked for money by a panhandler. Then the question 6, these are very interesting when you see the whole thing. Has anyone approached you in downtown in a way that made you feel unsafe? And we said, if yes, explain what happened. The answers were yes or no, and then explain. 65% of the people who responded, which was 725 people, when asked the question, have you been approached, has anyone approached you downtown in a way that made you feel unsafe, said no. So almost 66% of the people said they had not been approached in a way that makes them feel unsafe. About 35% of the people, 381, said yes, they had been approached in a way that makes you feel unsafe. So if you back it up, most people say they know about there's panhandling downtown. The majority of the people said yes, they have been asked for money, but the majority of the people have said no, we were not approached in a way that made us feel unsafe. But there were also 387 comments that went along with that question. That's why you sort of have to go into deep dive into the comments. Question 7 is, are there activities downtown that negatively impact your enjoyment of the area? Then it's, if yes, please provide the details on those activities. 33.5% of the people, 367 people, said there were not any activities. You know, there are no negative activities. You know, there's nothing that bugs me about going downtown, basically. But 66.5%, or 728 people, said, yes, there are activities downtown that negatively impact my enjoyment of the area. And there were 714 comments. And I've whipped through 714 comments. And again, this is why I want everybody to see them, but what's really interesting is that most of those comments are about what's going on Flat Street, specifically by, as we call it, the wall, and specifically about what happens at the transportation center. That's not to say that people don't say somebody did something to me that bothers me on Main Street, but most of the comments are about that section of town. What's also interesting, because it wasn't a, the question was an open-ended question where you could just, we weren't saying, does what happens on Flat Street bother you? Does this bother you? Does that bother you? There were sprinkled in there's some things that I think none of us would have probably thought people would have said. Some people said, the traffic downtown bothers me. One person said, the people that walk slow with backpacks on bother me, and
Well,
some
good
people,
point.
some people like the people that take up 2 parking spaces. So it was really, when you look at it, you sort of get this, these people out there that things bother them that you would never think bother people, so.
But there are themes that are not just 1 or 2 people.
Yeah. It's really kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody's downtown on Wednesdays. There are those guys that come from this religious organization that scream at people. I mean, they got dissed. Yeah, they got dissed a couple times. But when you look at it, you're going to see most of what people are talking about is it's drugs, and it's what's happening down on Flat Street and by the transportation center. So I think it's an insightful question. It gives you a lot of information. Question 8, do panhandlers make you less likely to visit downtown Brattleboro? The choices were no, it does not make me less likely. It makes me somewhat less likely. It makes me strongly less likely, or something else. Do panhandlers make you less likely to visit downtown Brattleboro? 48.5% of the people, or 542 people, said no. Panhandlers do not make me less likely to visit downtown. 25.5%, or 285 people, said yes, it makes me somewhat less likely to visit downtown, the panhandlers. And about little over 14% said it makes me strongly less likely to come down. That's about 160 people. So the majority of the people who answered the question says, no, panhandling does not make me less likely to visit downtown. So that's interesting. We asked people for their age. It was, I'll just give you the rundown. 18 to 24, there were 50 people who were 18 to 24. 25 to 35 was about 15%, which was 167 people. 35 to 44 was 23%, that's 257 people. 45 to 54 was about 26% of the respondents, that's 289 people. 55 to 59 was just shy of 10%, 110 people. 60 to 64 was a little over 9%, 104 people.
That's my group.
Yep. No, John, this is you. Over 65.
Stop.
Is the 12%.
That's the old guy at the end.
Yeah. So the majority of the people answering were between the ages, I think, of 35 and 54. That was about 50% of the people. Then we asked gender, and 25.3%, or 281 people, identified themselves as male. 60, just shy of 69%, or 764 people, identified themselves as being female.
Wow, that's interesting.
We had 6 people who identified themselves as transgender male. We had 1 person who identified themselves as transgender female. 41 people preferred not to answer. So the majority of the people, almost 69% of the people who responded were female.
That is surprising.
And we all, I found it very interesting. And again, there are crosstabs that you can run to figure out who's in this age group thinks what. But I think it's, I don't know if I'm surprised or not, but I think it's really is important. I'll make sure everybody has some link on where you can see everything. And again, it's being really responsible and not taking one comment out of 750 and saying, this is this evil thing that's going on. Because I think in some ways it reflects, to me, I feel pretty good about, even though some of the things are not positive from the survey, I feel very good that I think it's what we all know. There's this like isolated little zone downtown that's really causing most of the headaches for people. And that's not to say that people don't say that I went to the Harmony lot and someone yelled at me. So that is in there, you're gonna read that. But, I think it's got lots of information for people.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, and we're gonna get it out, and we'll have it so the Downtown Alliance can send a link out too, and, but.
You're gonna let
it's
us
good.
know when you take your chamber hat off?
Anytime you want, I will.
No, I
Yeah.
was just playing with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but to get 1,117 people to reply to something is huge.
Oh, thank you.
Pretty good.
It's huge. So, oh,
I was just going to clarify process. So you said the survey's going to close in the next day or two. So
Yeah.
it's basically at the end.
Yeah.
And then with these multiple comments, would that be accessible? I'm a little
That-
unclear about
that's
how-
what I feel it may be people here can disagree with me. I don't want to be the one that synthesizes the information and said this is what people think. So I personally believe that people should see what the comments are,
Why
but
not?
then my next step is, but we all have to be responsible with that information. Because, there's gonna be 751 comments on what I don't like about downtown, and somebody out there can pick one of them and blast it on a headline. So there's who's the one that gets to synthesize the information, and I don't feel like, is that me or is that Downtown Alliance? But I also think that we all have to be really responsible with what we have.
Well, let's look over
So-
into the corner over there because.
I already did.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm trying to, do you see what I'm trying to say, Josh? I'm sort of,
Yeah, absolutely. And
because there's a lot to
I'm
learn from
conflicted
this.
too, because part of it is nowhere in there is that it's confidential in the sense that you don't put your name when you answer the question.
That's right.
It's not confidential that says that your responses are going to be kept confidential.
Right,
Right.
right.
But you have a former professor in the room. There's got to be a way to code information so that you can extrapolate from the comments
Yes.
some general themes.
There is. I can do keywords on things. So that's what I grapple with too. I want as much information to be out there, but we want it in a way that people are going to actually get something from it.
Right. You don't want to draw conclusions from an outline or comment.
Right.
But there are going to be patterns that
There-
present themselves.
And they're very clear when you look at it. That's sort of why I think anybody who looks at the 751 comments, you're going to see, oh, this is like a no-brainer what's going on. So I sort of feel it's going to be really helpful, but I also am concerned that somebody's going to take one thing out. And I think as a town, I'm like chamber and select board split here. We have a really great town here, and yes, we have problems. And I don't think it does us any service to take one thing and magnifying it to the rest of the world that our community's horrible, because it's not horrible. What we need to magnify to the rest of the world is we have a really, really great community. Yeah, we have problems like anybody else, but we're dealing with them, we're facing with them, and come to us. You know what I mean? So I'm sort of grappling with, that's what we have to keep centered on when we do this, that this is a tool for us to understand what the problems are and fix them, but not like kill ourselves at the same time with the rest of the world. I don't know. John was.
Well, surveys are. I really don't put a lot of.
You should.
A lot of faith in survey. This was a good survey,
Yeah.
but it can be skewed so many different ways, and it can be looked at in so many different ways. And unless it's really, regimented and really detailed on the survey, I don't think you're going to get a.
I think, John, when you look at it, you're going to say something different.
Oh no, and I have a feeling I know which way it was going to go, but again,
But see, the thing is, it doesn't go which way you think it's going to go. I think people thought everyone was going to say, yeah, they're panhandlers, yeah, they don't want to make me go downtown anymore, but it doesn't say that.
No, I wasn't expecting that.
Oh, okay.
Really. Yeah, I was expecting that people knew there was panhandling
Yeah.
down there, but to what degree does it bother them? It bothers some people, and it doesn't bother other people. So it's, but again, surveys are. I don't. I hope people don't put too much into it. That's all. You read it, get something out of it, but don't fly off the handle.
I
think also there isn't.
I was
Oh, sorry.
hoping
sorry.
to
Oh, yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
The, I'm sorry to hear that, John, because the surveys, especially one that gets this level of return, and particularly the comments, 700 and some comments, is going to reveal a lot about what's going on. And you can design surveys to get, perfectly to get what you want, or you can design general surveys and take what you get. I think what was different about this one is that it went out, it was put out so widely, and there was so much conversation about it, and a lot of criticism about, well, why are they asking this when the real problem is this, and back and forth. But there was a place to write your comments, to say what you mean. And that qualitative input, that voice coming from that many people, I think is going to tell us something. I have a sense I know what you're talking about, Kate, in terms of what it's going to say, because I read a lot of the things on social media that people were saying it needed to say. So I have a sense of where that's going. Whether it reflects badly on Brattleboro or not depends entirely on what we do with it.
Right.
And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that and getting a lot more community input, and see where it sends us, because that was what I hoped would come from this, is we would get some direction of where we needed to put resources and put our energy.
Yep. Yeah, Brenda and then Stephanie. Yeah, come up here.
Oh, guess you're not gonna get the time.
Podium.
Oh, no issues. Okay, hi. I think Brenda again. Still
From Newfane.
Yeah. So, as the survey was going around, well, first of all, I have one question. Was it put out only on Facebook, or was there certain email lists it went to?
It went to email. It went to email lists as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I one concern I had was that it was not, there wasn't a paper format, and I know that that's
Right.
possible. I know that would have made it harder.
Yeah.
However, I'm really concerned that maybe people who might be experiencing extreme poverty or homelessness did not have a chance to fill out this survey because of that, and I think that that's really important. Actually, that maybe we do a little reach out to make sure that those populations do get to. I also, as this survey was going around, I was extremely concerned. I actually started feeling really sick to my stomach that we're spending so much time talking about these people as if they're like this population of things and not human beings. And I really didn't know how to handle it, because I was also trying to get people to fill out the survey and make sure that that it was enough of a different group of people, trying not to say what I thought of it, which I did think it led you, and I'm glad that people maybe didn't go that way, but I did think it led you to feel uncomfortable about panhandling, and I felt like that was a little bit concerning. I think a lot of people had that same view, but I'm speaking for me. But I really feel like there has got to be another way where we're both educating, not just thinking about what we're going to do about the panhandlers and what we're going to do about the root cause of the problem, but also what are we going to do about the perception that all the panhandlers are dangerous, because they're not all dangerous. And I have been yelled at when you said, I don't know who it was that just said yelled at going by somewhere.
Somebody commented on that.
So I've been yelled at in the co-op by a perfectly, having a bad day, upper middle class Brattleboro resident. So I mean, everybody has. I'm just saying, everybody has bad days, and so I really think there's also a perception that we need to be dealing with, and we shouldn't be just focusing on the problem of the panhandlers or the homeless population or the people who are suffering from the disease of addiction. I'm working on that with Robin Risky, trying to say that correctly. But also on the population of people that maybe are scared and sometimes not for good reason. And why aren't we putting more into the education process? And I really would urge us to use different words besides panhandling, because I think that just that in and of itself, we're talking about these people as things, not as people. And it really, as this survey went around, it really started to make me sick because of that. Not because I know you were trying to do a good, but I'm just saying that the entire growth, the depth of this conversation is making me a little bit. We need to start. We need to do better. We need to put the population that is struggling, and along with racial equality, we need to be putting economic equality at the center, and then figuring out what we're going to do about that. and all the other pieces, not treat it as the symptom and treat it as the problem. The problem is that we haven't put it at the center. That's all.
Thank you. I think Stephanie, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
Oh, will you come up here, because no one can hear, yeah, you won't be able to be heard.
Stephanie from representing TBA. I would say that it is our responsibility to synthesize the data. I think that anytime you collect data and of this magnitude, to put it out to the people in raw form makes me uneasy and also makes me feel as though the information will actually get lost because who has time to read through all of these? So that's my vote in your question that you were asking. And then the other thing is I feel like we need to present this data not with a ... I'm not proposing presenting it with a solution, but presenting it with here is the data and here are the steps that we're continuing down. It's always a little uneasy to put something out there for people to percolate and feel uneasy about. And I also want to draw attention to the percentage that 35% said that they felt unsafe. And that number is startling to me and if I was reading this, that's the one that I would key in on, is that unsafe feeling. And so, okay, now what are the next steps? And not feel powerless.
And we'll look forward to I'm putting my select board hat on now. That's something that the Downtown Alliance can work on too.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So I'll put my select board hat. So we'll figure out what we're going to do, but I think the more people have oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please come up. Oh, please come to the thing.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that with
Oh, can you tell us who you are?
Annie Macy.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So that is a large number of people who feel unsafe, but I think the next question has to be why and how they're feeling unsafe, and then us as a community needs to help them, educate them, and find out ways to connect the dots there, because a lot of people may feel unsafe, but there should have been a question, or if there was questions in there, when and how, and then we need to figure out how to help that, why and how they're feeling unsafe. That's
And we do have that because we asked them if you feel unsafe, tell us why.
Yeah.
So that data is contained in here.
And I think that that's extremely important.
Yeah.
data.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Yep.
Oh.
Hi. Sandra Holloway, Brattleboro. So I know that there was a meeting that I wasn't able to attend, that parents came together around Flat Street, I think mostly in their concerns about their children's safety, and then that kind of got followed up. And Brenda, I don't know if you went to that first one.
I didn't.
Okay, and then I know that we had one here, and it was a good fill up this room in a circle, and that was also facilitated by Chad Simmons, so he facilitated like both of them from Building Bright Futures, and I hope he can come and articulate that. He reached out to Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition and Act for Social Justice and Mel Motel from the Restorative Justice. The problem is that none of us have the capacity necessarily to continue to facilitate such discussions, but I will say that they're rich and they need to continue, and nobody wanted to leave after a couple hours. And based like on what you were just saying, there needs to be some kind of some kind of action happening with these concerns. So, and I don't know if it's the select board, I'm trying to figure out if it's the select board's role, or can there be a committee that involves the Downtown Business Alliance with Act for Social Justice and all of us in between that can, and community concerned parents that can address this, because people are going to be asking for money, and if people are feeling unsafe about that, that needs to be addressed. If people are feeling unsafe about their children being on Flat Street, that needs to be addressed. And this should just be a continued conversation, so that, and there needs to be some action taken. And I would hate to see it just coming from kind of willy-nilly or people just acting in what they think is the best interest of this community without some kind of a structure overhead. So I don't know what that would look like. I would love to talk to anybody on the select board about that, but I do know that there's definitely interest. Everybody in the room raised their hand that they wanted to do something about it, but nobody really has any kind of outlet per se. So and I know that the police department community outreach efforts with the other agencies has definitely got a lot of support from people, and we talk about perception of harm versus actual harm, or safety versus perception of safety, and that needs to continue as well. So I don't know. So I just wanted to put that out there. It's not a formulated thought, but I do feel like there's not a sustainable thing right now, and I don't think the select board meetings are the place to keep it sustained. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of say in how to go forward. So thanks.
Thank you. Do you, I think parts of the things is, and we know that Chief Fitzgerald has put a task force together, plus they have, I don't want to call it like a strategy about dealing with some of the issues that are going on downtown. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that and just give people a little update. I don't know if you want to do that, just.
About the outreach team?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can tell us about anything else, like community policing strategies or whatever. That might inform that that you folks are on top of a lot of this stuff.
One thing is new, and we're grappling with, and that is this perception of fear of crime. And that's hard to define, because what this individual may feel unsafe, this one feels perfectly fine. And so it's all individual, and we're working around that at the PD. And basically what we're trying to do is continuing some of our old traditions that we've been doing for years. Right now we spend anywhere from 180 to 210 hours downtown walking. So if you break that down, that's about 6 hours a day a police officer is downtown. Some of the things I've heard out of your survey might make us refocus on where they are downtown, which is extremely helpful information like that. So we're certainly going to look at that, and I would absolutely like to look at some of the comments, because that's going to help me with my resources and how we're going to deploy them. But some of the things that, you know, we've always, for the past several years, hosted and participated in frequent community forums that are open to the public, where they can come and express their concerns, their fears, and just basically have an open dialogue. And you know, so we're continuing to do that. We are really involved with the schools like we've never been before. You know, the partnership and mentoring with the youth, I think that is extremely important to do that. So we're continuing to do that. One new thing, other than the street outreach team that we recently have just undergone, matter of fact, we haven't even had our first class yet, is the rate aggressive defense, the RAD program. We have a RAD certified officer that is now giving, or will be giving, classes to the women of the community to come in and hopefully, you know, teach them some tactics to where they will feel more comfortable in certain situations where the activity or what they're observing doesn't reach the level of a crime, but it certainly makes them feel uncomfortable. So, you know, that's another thing we're doing. And we're just absolutely doing our best to stay downtown, to be visible, to work on the various hours, you know, when the stores are closed, when college kids are going through the Harmony parking lot and things of that nature, and open to any and all suggestions or comments.
Thank you.
And I agree with you. We did run some stats, and I apologize I don't have them, but Brattleboro is
a safe place. Comparatively, nationally, statewide, and regionally, we are a safe place. We have crime, we have issues, we have problems, but relatively, we are a pretty safe community, by and large.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone else have
Oh.
any?
Sorry.
Oh.
Point, counterpoint.
I just wanted to add one more thing. No, it's not a compliment at all. It's actually to support the police department. I feel like people want a police officer downtown on Platt Street, and there is concerns about kids walking, you know, after programs, especially now that it's dark. My own child does. He goes down there and does a program in the evenings, and he's 10. But I'm comfortable with him walking, and but I think just having people present downtown, having, you know, lighting was discussed, and just having people, like people in the community walking on Platt Street will make somebody feel safe. When you're the only one in a parking lot and you don't see anybody, you don't feel safe. And so one police officer versus 3 just residents, I feel just safe equally. So that's just my own opinion. So that, again, this is something we can look at as a community and not necessarily use town resources to address it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great idea.
Does anyone else have any comments? All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks to the police department. Next up, we have 2 committee appointments. We have 2 committee appointments.
By most of the room.
One is to ratify the school district's appointment to the Traffic Safety Committee, and the other one is a position on the Development Review Board, and I think we have 1 applicant for that.
Correct.
So, does somebody want to make a motion for the Traffic Safety Committee?
I would like to move, I got to do this once before, to appoint Alice Sharks to the Traffic Safety Committee.
We have a motion to, can I do it this way, David? May I say that you made a motion to ratify the school district's appointment of Alice Charks to the Traffic Safety Committee as a school representative for a term ending June 2019?
Or I could look at my potential motion and do that.
Oh, you tried to do what I did.
Okay.
I just was so excited.
You were
to
so
get Alice.
excited. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No. So, motion carries 5-0. Alice is on the Traffic Safety Committee as a school representative through June 2019. Now we have one opening on the Development Review Board. Would anyone like to make a nomination? Does anyone want to nominate Ian Keel?
I would like to nominate Ian Keel.
Okay, Brandy's nominated Ian Keel. Are there any other nominations? All right, we have a nomination to, a motion to nominate Ian Keel to the Development Review Board for a term ending June 2019. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Ian Keel is now on the Development Review Board.
Awesome.
With that, we are done our business. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody,
We're
who
only
was at
1
any
minute.
part of this meeting.
It's only 1 minute
Yes.
past Tim's deadline.
Thanks to
Yes.
the ASL interpreters, thanks to Chris, thanks to BCTV, thanks to everybody, thanks to the use of the library.
Do we get to keep our...